In this video, we're going to break down 2 hours of disturbing Demon Slayer theories to fall asleep to. Let's get started. Disclaimer, spoilers ahead. First up, we got the Demon Slayer, Mark Death Curse, trading life for power. The Demon Slayer Mark Death Curse. There exists a power that can turn an ordinary Demon Slayer into someone capable of fighting the strongest demons. This power is called the Demon Slayer Mark, but this incredible strength comes with a terrible price. Every single person who awakens this mark is cursed to die before they reach the age of 25, no exceptions. This is not a rumor or a theory. This is canon fact, stated directly in the manga and anime. The Demon Slayer mark looks like a strange tattoo or birthmark that appears on a warrior's body, usually on their face. Each mark is unique and different for every person. When someone awakens their mark, they gain superhuman strength, incredible speed, and the ability to fight on equal ground with upper moon demons, who would normally kill them easily. The mark basically takes a regular human and turns them into a monster fighting machine, but the cost is your life. The mark first appeared over 500 years ago during the Sengoku era, which people call the Golden Age of Demon Slayers. Back then, many warriors had these marks, and they were common enough that an entire generation of Demon Slayers fought with this power. But almost all of those warriors died young, very young. The records from that time were mostly lost, and the knowledge of the mark faded away until it appeared again in the main timeline of Demon Slayer, when Tanjiro and other characters awakened it during their desperate battles. The conditions needed to awaken a Demon Slayer mark are brutal and would kill most people. Your heart rate must go above 200 beats per minute. For context, a normal resting heart rate is between 60 to 100 beats per minute. 200 beats per minute is what happens during extreme life or death panic. Your body temperature must also exceed 39 degrees Celsius, which is 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a dangerously high fever that can cause brain damage or death in normal circumstances. Muichiro Tokito, the Mist Hashira, explained that the key difference between those who awaken the mark and those who die trying is simple: survival. You either survive these impossible conditions or you die. There's no middle ground. But even surviving and gaining the mark means death, just later, always before age 25. There's another important rule about the mark. You can't awaken it alone. You must be near someone who already has the mark. The marks spread from person to person like they're resonating with each other. When one marked warrior appears, others around them can awaken their marks too, if they meet the temperature and heart rate conditions. This is why Tanjiro awakening his mark first was so important. He became the trigger that allowed other Demon Slayers to potentially awaken their own marks. The first person ever to have a Demon Slayer mark was Yoriichi Tsugikuni, the legendary swordsman who created sun breathing and was the strongest Demon Slayer to ever exist. But Yoriichi was different. He was born with his mark already on his face. He never had to awaken it through near-death experiences. And because he was born with it, Yoriichi was the only person who ever escaped the curse. He lived to be over 80 years old and died of natural causes while standing up, still ready to fight. Everyone else, dead before 25. When you awaken the mark, your physical abilities explode. The manga states that your arm strength increases by approximately 100 times, though this might be exaggerated language. Still, the boost is massive and undeniable. Muichiro Tokito demonstrated this perfectly during his fight against Gyoko, the Upper Moon 5 demon. Before awakening his mark, Muichiro was struggling badly. Gyoko trapped him in a water prison pot where he couldn't breathe and was slowly drowning. The demon had skewered him with poisonous needles multiple times. Muichiro was going to die, but then Kotetsu, a young swordsmith, freed him by breaking the pot. As Muichiro recovered and listened to advice from Tanjiro, his body reached those extreme conditions. His heart rate shot above 200 beats per minute. His body temperature skyrocketed past 39 degrees Celsius. His mark awakened. Red cloud-like patterns appeared on both his cheeks and the left side of his forehead. Everything changed instantly. Muichiro broke free and went back to fight Gyoko. The demon who had been dominating him minutes ago couldn't keep up anymore. Muichiro moved so fast that Gyoko couldn't track him. When Gyoko revealed his true form, which only 3 people in history had ever seen, he thought he would win easily. His true form had diamond-hard scales and incredible power. It didn't matter. Muichiro cut through Gyoko like he was nothing, moving at blinding speed and beheading the Upper Moon demon with shocking ease. The mark turned a difficult fight into a complete victory. Mitsuri Kanroji, the Love Hashira, awakened her mark during the same arc while fighting Hantengu's younger form. She was being overwhelmed and about to die. Then her mark appeared, and she gained the strength to keep fighting and protect everyone until Tanjiro could behead Hantengu's main body. The mark saved her life in that moment, but it also sealed her fate. The mark grants other abilities beyond physical strength and speed. Marked warriors can access something called the transparent world, which lets them see through their opponent's body. They can see muscles, bones, and blood flow, allowing them to predict movements before they happen. Marked warriors can also turn their Nichiren swords bright red by clashing blades with another marked warrior, or by gripping their sword with tremendous force. A bright red Nichiren sword generates intense heat that slows down even the most powerful demon's regeneration. This is how Yoriichi scarred Muzan Kibutsuji, with wounds that continued burning the Demon King for over 500 years. These abilities make the Demon Slayer mark sound amazing, and it is amazing. But here's the part that makes it terrifying. Once you awaken the mark, you're dead. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but before you turn 25 years old, you will die. The mark is described by Gyomei Himejima, the stone Hashira, as paying your lifespan in advance in exchange for a greater physique. You're borrowing power from your future and burning through your life to get strength now. Kokushibo, who was originally a human named Michikatsu Tsugikuni before he became Upper Moon 1, explained that the mark reduces the bearer's lifespan in exchange for power. There's an even more brutal version of this curse. If you awaken the mark after you're already 25 years old, you don't get years to live, you get hours, maybe a day. Gyomei Himejima awakened his mark at age 27 during the final battle against Kokushibo. Kokushibo looked at him using the transparent world and saw his age. He told Gyomei that because he awakened the mark after turning 25, he would die within hours. Gyomei died shortly after the final battles ended. The curse affected everyone. During the Sengoku era, almost all the marked demon slayers died young. This is stated as historical fact in the series. Kokushibo knew about the curse because he lived through that era. He was a demon slayer himself who awakened a mark and knew he was doomed to die at 25. The thought terrified him so much that when Muzan Kibutsuji offered to turn him into a demon, Kokushibo accepted. He betrayed everything, abandoned his family, and became a demon because he couldn't accept dying young. As a demon, he lived for approximately 480 years, escaping the curse through demonification. Only 2 ways exist to escape the Demon Slayer mark curse. First, become a demon like Kokushibo did. Demons don't age and don't die from natural causes, so the curse doesn't affect them. Second, be born with the mark like Yoriichi. That's it. Those are the only 2 confirmed ways, and one of them requires betraying humanity entirely. For the Hashira who awakened marks during the final battle, the curse hung over them like a death sentence. Muichiro Tokito awakened his mark at age 14. He was killed by Kokushibo during the Infinity Castle battle, so he never had to face dying at 25. But knowing he would have died within 11 years anyway makes his death even more tragic. Mitsuri Kanroji and Obanai Iguro both awakened their marks and survived the final battle against Muzan, but both died from their injuries shortly after. The psychological weight of this curse is enormous. Imagine being a teenager like Muichiro or a young adult like Mitsuri, and knowing that gaining the power to protect people means you'll never see your 25th birthday. Every Hashira who learned about the curse had to make a choice. Accept the power and die young, or stay weaker and possibly die in battle anyway because you weren't strong enough. Most chose the mark. They decided that protecting humanity and fighting Muzan was worth dying young. This curse represents the core theme of Demon Slayer, sacrifice. The Demon Slayers give everything, their bodies, their families, their futures, their lives. The mark is the ultimate expression of this sacrifice. You trade your entire future for power right now. You give up decades of life, the chance to have a family, the opportunity to grow old, all to gain the strength needed to kill demons and protect innocent people. The mark also creates a terrible irony. The strongest demon slayers, the ones capable of protecting the most people, are cursed to die the youngest. Muichiro reached Hashira rank at age 14 inches, just 2 months of training, making him one of the most talented demon slayers ever. He awakened his mark and gained incredible power, and he died at 14, cut in half by Kokushibo. He never got the chance to reach his full potential or see what kind of person he could become. The curse explains why demon slayers are always desperate during fights. They're not just fighting for survival, they're fighting against time itself. Even if they win, even if they survive every battle, the mark is slowly killing them. Every day brings them closer to 25, and 25 means death. This creates a sense of urgency that drives the entire final arc. The demon slayers can't wait or train more or prepare better. They have to fight now because they might not have a tomorrow. Understanding the Demon Slayer mark curse also makes you realize how cruel the world of Demon Slayer really is. These warriors are mostly teenagers and young adults who had their families killed by demons. They trained brutally to gain strength. They awakened marks to protect others, and their reward is an early death before they even reach their prime years. No retirement, no happy ending, no growing old with loved ones, just death before 25. The curse makes Yoriichi's survival even more miraculous and tragic. He was the only one who could have the mark's power without dying young. He could have lived forever if he wanted, growing stronger and protecting people for centuries. But he failed to kill Muzan when he had the chance. That failure haunted Yoriichi his entire life. He lived to his 80 seconds, but he considered his long life a curse because he had to watch everyone around him die young while he failed his one true goal. The Demon Slayer mark is both a blessing and a curse, but honestly, it's mostly a curse. Yes, it grants incredible power. Yes, it lets humans fight upper moon demons and survive battles they would otherwise lose instantly, but it also guarantees you'll die young, alone, and probably in pain. The mark represents the ultimate sacrifice, the final card that demon slayers can play when they have nothing else left. It's a devil's bargain, written on your skin, a countdown clock disguised as a birthmark, and a death sentence wrapped in power. This is why the mark is one of the most disturbing aspects of Demon Slayer. It's not just about cool powers or winning fights. It's about children and teenagers burning through their lifespans to protect a world that will barely remember them. Every marked warrior is a candle burning twice as bright and half as long, and in the end, they all burn out. The only question is whether they take down enough demons before the flame goes out. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Obanai Iguro's childhood sacrifice, the Serpent Demon's prisoner. Obanai Iguro's childhood sacrifice, Anyone, the Serpent Demon's prisoner. Some backstories in Demon Slayer are sad, some are tragic, but Obanai Iguro's childhood is pure horror. The Serpent Hashira lived a nightmare that most people couldn't imagine even in their worst dreams. He spent the first 12 years of his life as a prisoner, locked in a cage like an animal, raised by a family who worshipped a demon and planned to feed him to her. This is not speculation or fan theory. This is canon fact from the manga, and every detail makes his story more disturbing. Obanai Iguro was born into the Iguro clan, a family of thieves who lived on an island. But these weren't ordinary thieves. They had made a deal with a demon, a terrible, monstrous demon that had the upper body of a woman and the lower body of a giant snake. This demon would kill people and steal their wealth, then give that stolen money to the Iguro family. In exchange for these riches, the family had to pay a price. They had to sacrifice their newborn babies to the demon. The demon loved eating babies. That was her favorite meal. So the Iguro family would produce children and then feed those children to the demon like they were offerings to a god. This arrangement had been going on for generations. The family became very wealthy from all the stolen goods the demon gave them. They lived in luxury, decorated their home with expensive things, and enjoyed a comfortable life, all because they were willing to sacrifice their own children to keep the demon happy. For 370 years, the Iguro family only gave birth to girls. Every single baby born into that family was female. Then, finally, after nearly 4 centuries, something changed. Obanai was born. He was the first male child in the Iguro family in 370 years. Being the first boy should have been special. It should have been celebrated. Instead, it made Obanai's situation even worse. The demon took one look at this rare male child and became fascinated. Obanai also had another unusual feature. He had heterochromia, which means his 2 eyes were different colors. His right eye was yellow, and his left eye was teal or emerald green. These unique eyes made the demon even more interested in him. Normally, the demon would eat babies right after they were born, but when she saw Obanai, she decided to wait. She thought he was too rare and special to eat immediately. She wanted him to grow bigger first. A baby would be a small meal, but if she let him grow for years, he would be much more satisfying when she finally ate him. So the demon told the family to keep Obanai alive and make him fat. From the moment he was born, Obanai was locked in a wooden cage. He lived his entire childhood inside that small prison cell. He never went outside. He never played with other children. He never experienced normal life. He just sat in that cage, day after day, year after year, waiting to be eaten. The family called this spoiling him. They brought him countless plates of rich, expensive food, fancy meals with strong smells and heavy flavors. They kept bringing more and more food, trying to fatten him up like farmers fattening livestock before slaughter. But the cage had terrible ventilation. The air couldn't move properly. All those strong food smells would stay trapped in the small room, making the air thick and disgusting. The smells became so overwhelming that Obanai got sick of eating. The food made him nauseous, but he had no choice. He was being cultivated like a crop, raised like cattle, treated like a pig, being prepared for market. The family members would talk to him sweetly, the way pet owners talk to their pets. They pretended to care about him, but Obanai knew the truth. They didn't love him. They were just keeping their product fresh until it was ready to be served. Every night brought new terror. The demon would visit him. She couldn't come during the day because demons burn in sunlight, but at night, she was free to move around. Obanai would lie in his cage in the darkness, and he would hear sounds, slithering sounds, scraping sounds, something massive moving across the ceiling and walls. The demon would crawl around his room in the dark, staring at him with her snake eyes, watching him sleep. Obanai was so frightened that he couldn't sleep until the sound stopped. Night after night, he would lie awake in terror, listening to the demon slither around his cage, knowing she was watching him, knowing she was waiting for him to get bigger so she could eat him. For 12 years, this was Obanai's entire life, trapped in a cage, fed like livestock, watched by a monster, knowing that someday, probably soon, he would be murdered and devoured. He had no freedom, no hope, and no way out. The only comfort he had was a small white snake that somehow got into his cage. This snake became Obanai's only friend. He named the snake Kaburamaru. While his entire family treated him like an object, this little snake was the only living thing that seemed to care about him. Kaburamaru would coil around Obanai and stay with him. In a life with no love, no kindness, and no humanity, this small snake was everything. When Obanai turned 12 years old, his nightmare reached a new level. The family decided it was time to formally present him to the demon. For the first time in his entire life, Obanai was allowed to leave his cell. He was dragged out by the women of his family and brought to a large room filled with expensive decorations and gaudy, excessive displays of wealth. Everything in that room had been bought with money stolen from people the demon had killed. At the end of the room, sitting on a grand platform like a statue of a goddess in a temple, was the demon herself. Obanai saw her clearly for the first time. She had long black hair and a face that might have been beautiful if not for her massive mouth. Her mouth stretched from ear to ear, filled with fangs, always gaping open like a snake preparing to swallow prey. Her eyes had thin, slitted pupils like a reptile. Vein-like patterns covered her face. Her tongue was forked at the end, and below her human torso, her body became a giant snake, covered in brown scales, thick and powerful. This was the creature that had been crawling around his cage every night for 12 years. This was the thing that would eventually eat him. Obanai knelt before her, shaking with fear and terror, and watched as the women of his family bowed down to worship this monster. The demon looked at Obanai and spoke. She said he was still small. She wanted to wait until he was bigger, but she had waited 12 years and her patience was running thin. She wanted something from him now. She wanted him to look more like her. She wanted him to resemble his owner. So she ordered the family to cut his mouth. The women grabbed Obanai and held him down. Then they took a blade and cut his mouth open. They sliced from the corners of his lips all the way to his ears on both sides. They cut his face to make his mouth look like the demon's gaping maw. Obanai's blood poured out as they mutilated his face. The blood was collected in a special cup, and the demon drank it while his mouth was still bleeding. After they finished cutting him, they wrapped his face in bandages and threw him back into his cell. The pain must have been unbearable. The horror of what they did to him was beyond imagination. But something changed in Obanai at that moment. He realized with absolute clarity that he was going to die. His family was going to let this demon eat him. There was no hope of rescue, no chance they would change their minds, no possibility of mercy. If he wanted to live, he would have to save himself. Obanai decided to escape. He stole a hairpin from one of his relatives, probably while they were bringing him food or checking on him. Every night, after the demon finished watching him and left, Obanai would take that hairpin and scratch at the wooden bars of his cage. He would scrape away at the wood, bit by bit, hour after hour, trying to make a hole big enough to slip through. This took weeks, maybe months. Every single day, he lived in constant fear that someone would notice what he was doing. Every time a family member came near his cage, his heart must have raced. If they discovered his escape attempt, they would stop him. They might tie him up, they might cut him again, they might just feed him to the demon immediately. But Obanai kept scratching. He had no other choice. Escape or die. The only creature he could trust was Kaburamaru. The little white snake stayed with him through everything. While Obanai worked on his escape, Kaburamaru was there. This snake became more than a pet. Kaburamaru became his partner, his friend, his only source of comfort in a world of absolute horror. Finally, after what felt like forever, Obanai scratched away enough wood to create an opening. One night, he squeezed through the gap in the bars and escaped into the darkness. Kaburamaru coiled around his neck as they ran. For the first time in 12 years, Obanai was outside his cage. For the first time in his entire life, he was free. But freedom didn't last long. The demon noticed immediately that her prize had escaped. She was furious, enraged beyond measure. All those years of waiting, all that patience, and now her special meal was running away. The demon couldn't accept this. She went on a rampage. First, she slaughtered Obanai's family. 50 people were murdered that night. The demon killed nearly every single member of the Iguro clan in her rage. She tore through them like they were nothing, punishing them for failing to keep Obanai locked up. Only one person survived, Obanai's cousin. Then the demon went after Obanai himself. She chased him through the night, her massive snake body moving impossibly fast. Obanai ran as hard as he could, but he was just a 12-year-old boy who had spent his entire life in a cage. He had never run before. His muscles were weak from years of confinement. The demon was gaining on him. She was about to catch him. She was about to kill him and eat him right there. Then something miraculous happened. A man appeared. This man was Shinjiro Rengoku, the flame Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps at that time. He was Kyojuro Rengoku's father, though this was years before Kyojuro became a Hashira himself. Shinjiro was passing through the area by chance and saw what was happening. He immediately jumped into action and fought the demon. The battle was quick. Shinjiro was a Hashira, one of the strongest demon slayers alive. The serpent demon, despite being terrifying to Obanai and his family, was actually relatively weak compared to the demons that Hashira normally fight. She didn't even have any special blood demon arts. She was just a demon who had found some weak humans to exploit. Against a real demon slayer, especially a Hashira, she didn't stand a chance. Shinjiro killed the demon and saved Obanai's life. For the first time ever, Obanai was truly safe. The monster that had haunted his entire childhood was dead. He was free. He had survived. But the trauma wasn't over. Shinjiro found Obanai's cousin, the only other survivor of the massacre. He brought them together, probably thinking they would be happy to have each other. Instead, Obanai's cousin attacked him, not physically, but with words. She screamed at him. She blamed him for everything. She said that if he had just stayed in the cage and let the demon eat him like he was supposed to, everyone would still be alive. She told him that he was selfish for wanting to live. She said he should have died. She said the deaths of their entire family were his fault. Think about what that means. Obanai had just escaped from 12 years of imprisonment and torture. He had barely survived being chased by a demon. And the only other person from his family who lived was telling him he should have let himself be eaten. She was saying his life wasn't worth saving. This destroyed something inside Obanai. Even though he knew logically that his cousin was wrong, even though he knew he had every right to save himself, her words haunted him. He began to hate himself. He hated his family. He hated his bloodline. He felt like he was corrupted and tainted by being born into such an evil clan. He thought his blood was impure because he came from people who would sacrifice babies to demons for money. This self-hatred followed Obanai for the rest of his life. He joined the Demon Slayer Corps, probably with Shinjiro's help. He channeled all his rage and guilt into killing demons. He trained relentlessly, pushing himself harder than almost anyone else. He created his own breathing style called serpent breathing, inspired by the demon who had tormented him and the snake who had saved him. He rose through the ranks and eventually became a Hashira himself, one of the 9 strongest demon slayers in the entire organization. But even as a Hashira, even while saving countless lives and killing countless demons, Obanai still felt worthless. He believed he was dirty and corrupt because of his family. He wore bandages over his mouth for years, hiding the scars where his family had mutilated him. Those scars were a permanent reminder of what he had survived. Every time he looked in a mirror, every time someone asked about his bandages, he had to remember that night when his own family held him down and cut his face to please a demon. Obanai also developed a deep distrust of women, which makes sense given that his family was all women who had raised him like livestock and cut his mouth open. The only person from his family who survived blamed him and rejected him. Every woman he knew in his childhood had been part of the cult that worshipped the demon. His gynophobia, his fear and distrust of women, came directly from this trauma. The only living thing Obanai truly trusted was Kaburamaru. The little white snake, who had been with him since his childhood, stayed with him forever. Kaburamaru wrapped around Obanai's shoulders and neck, always present, always there. Other people might have thought it was strange to see a Hashira with a pet snake, but Kaburamaru wasn't a pet. Kaburamaru was Obanai's partner, his friend, and the only being who had been there through the worst moments of his life. Kaburamaru also served a practical purpose. Remember that Obanai had heterochromia, and his right eye was very weak. He could barely see out of it. This made him partially blind, which is a huge disadvantage for any fighter. But Kaburamaru helped compensate for this weakness. The snake could read enemy movements and attacks, then communicate that information to Obanai. Together, they fought as one unit. When Obanai eventually was blinded completely during the battle against Muzan, Kaburamaru was still there, still helping him fight even when he couldn't see anything at all. Obanai's childhood also affected how he acted toward other people. He was harsh, strict, and demanding. He expected perfection from everyone around him because he pushed himself so hard. He was cold and distant, never letting people get close. He would tie up lower-ranked demon slayers for minor offenses during training and use them as obstacles. He had unrealistic expectations and would berate people for any failure. But underneath that harsh exterior was someone who cared deeply, even if he couldn't show it easily. He had immense respect for Kagaya Ubuyashiki, the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, and he fell in love with Mitsuri Kanroji, the love Hashira. Mitsuri was everything Obanai wasn't: cheerful, kind, open with her emotions. Talking with her made Obanai forget his traumatic past. She made him feel like maybe he could be a normal person. But Obanai never confessed his feelings to Mitsuri. He believed his bloodline was too tainted, too corrupt. He thought he didn't deserve happiness because he came from such an evil family. He planned to die fighting demons, and only after death, only after being reborn in another life, free from the curse of his bloodline, did he think he would be worthy of loving her. This is the level of self-hatred that Obanai carried. Even after becoming a Hashira, even after saving countless lives, even after dedicating his existence to protecting others, he still believed he was fundamentally worthless because of the family he was born into. A family that imprisoned him, tortured him, cut his mouth open, and planned to feed him to a demon. Obanai Iguro's backstory is disturbing on multiple levels. It's disturbing because of what happened to him physically, the cage, the forced feeding, the mutilation. It's disturbing because of the psychological torture, knowing for 12 years that you're being raised as food, hearing a demon crawl around your room every night. It's disturbing because his own family, the people who should have protected him, were his tormentors. And it's most disturbing because even after escaping that nightmare, even after surviving when he should have died, Obanai never truly escaped. He carried that trauma with him every single day for the rest of his life. The bandages on his mouth weren't just covering scars. They were covering the physical evidence of what his family did to him. Every time Obanai wrapped those bandages, he had to touch those scars and remember. During the final battle against Muzan, Obanai finally removed his bandages. After years of hiding his face, he showed everyone the truth. The scars were exposed, and in those final moments, as he fought alongside Mitsuri, as he finally allowed himself to be vulnerable, Obanai found some peace. When Obanai and Mitsuri both died from their injuries after the battle against Muzan, they died together. In those last moments, Obanai finally told Mitsuri how he felt, and she responded that she felt the same way. In his final moments, Obanai finally got to experience being loved, not despite his past, but with full knowledge of it. Mitsuri saw his scars, knew his history, understood his trauma, and loved him anyway. The tragedy of Obanai Iguro isn't just that he suffered. Many characters in Demon Slayer suffered. The tragedy is that he suffered so much, survived against impossible odds, became a hero who saved countless lives, and still believed he was worthless. He was imprisoned as a child, tortured by his family, marked and mutilated for a demon's amusement, and then blamed for surviving. And somehow, through all that horror, he found the strength to keep fighting, to keep protecting others, to keep living. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Gyomei Himejima's betrayal, the Temple Massacre. If you want to understand why Gyomei Himejima constantly cries, you need to know what happened to him before he became the Stone Hashira. His backstory is one of the most painful in all of Demon Slayer. It's a story about trust, betrayal, and how one night of horror destroyed everything good in his life. This is not speculation or theory. Every detail of this tragedy is confirmed in the manga and anime as canon fact. Gyomei Himejima was born into the Himejima clan on Mount Hinode. His life started with tragedy and never really stopped. His mother died during childbirth, leaving him without a parent from the very beginning. His father tried to raise him, but then an epidemic swept through the area, and his father died from disease. Gyomei lost both parents while he was still a child. Then things got worse. Gyomei developed a severe fever when he was young. The illness was so bad that it damaged his eyes and left him completely blind. He has been unable to see for his entire life. His eyes are white, with no visible pupils. He cannot see anything at all. For most people, being blind would make life nearly impossible, especially during the Meiji or Taisho period in Japan, when medical care was limited and disabilities were poorly understood. But Gyomei developed something unusual. He gained an incredibly powerful sense of hearing that went beyond normal human ability. He could hear so well that he could tell if someone near him had evil or malicious intent. This supernatural hearing helped him navigate the world despite his blindness. However, when he tried to tell people about this ability, they called him a liar. They said a blind person couldn't possibly know things like that. People labeled him as someone who made up stories and couldn't be trusted. By the time Guillaume was a teenager, around 18 or 19 years old, he was living alone in an old, run-down temple. The building was in bad condition, but it was shelter. Despite everything he had been through, Guillaume found a new purpose in life. He began taking in orphan children who had nowhere else to go. These were kids who had lost their parents, just like he had. They had no family, no home, and no one to care for them. Guillaume gave them a place to live. 9 children came to live with Guillaume at the temple. Their names included Sayo, Kazunori, Asami, Ryotaro, and Kaigaku, among others. These children became Guillaume's family. He loved them deeply, treating them like his own sons and daughters, even though they shared no blood relation. The fact that none of them were related by blood actually helped them bond better. They were a family built on choice and care, not just genetics. Life at the temple was poor. Guillaume worked extremely hard every day, trying to earn enough money to feed everyone, but there was never enough. Food was scarce and expensive. Guillaume made a decision that showed his true character. He would give most of his food to the children. He barely ate anything himself. He wanted to make sure the kids had full stomachs, even if it meant he went hungry. Because of this constant starvation, Guillaume became very skinny and weak-looking. His body was frail from lack of nutrition, but he didn't care about himself. He only cared that the children were fed. Despite the poverty, they were happy. The children laughed and played together. Guillaume took care of them with endless patience and kindness. He was gentle and soft-spoken, always ready to comfort them when they were scared or sad. The children trusted him completely. Well, almost completely. The temple was located in an area that was notorious for demon attacks. Demons appeared frequently in that region, and everyone who lived there knew the danger. Guillaume was very aware of this threat. He couldn't see the demons with his eyes, but he could sense them with his incredible hearing. To protect the children, Guillaume created a safety system. Every single night, without fail, Guillaume would burn wisteria incense around the temple. Wisteria is a type of flower that demons absolutely hate. The smell of wisteria repels demons and keeps them away. By burning wisteria incense every evening, Guillaume created an invisible barrier that protected the temple. As long as the incense was burning, no demon would come near them. Guillaume also made one very strict rule that all the children had to follow. Nobody was allowed to leave the temple grounds after sunset. Once the sun went down, demons could move freely, and it wasn't safe outside. Everyone had to stay within the borders of the temple property, where the wisteria incense could protect them. This rule was non-negotiable. Guillaume explained it clearly to every child. As long as they stayed inside and the incense burned, they would be safe. For a long time, this system worked perfectly. Night after night, the wisteria incense kept demons away. The children slept peacefully, protected by Guillaume's careful planning. Everything was fine, until one night, when everything fell apart. One of the children living at the temple was a boy named Kaigaku. Kaigaku was an orphan just like the others, and on the surface, he seemed happy. He would talk and laugh with the other children during meals. When Guillaume patted him on the head, Kaigaku would smile. He appeared to be perfectly content living at the temple with his new family. But Kaigaku had a dark side. He was a thief. He had been stealing money from the temple. Nobody knew how long this had been going on, but eventually, the other children caught him in the act. They found Kaigaku taking money that didn't belong to him, money that Guillaume had worked so hard to earn, money that was supposed to buy food for all of them. The other children were angry and upset. They confronted Kaigaku and scolded him for stealing. They chased him away from the temple as punishment. Kaigaku was told not to come back until nightfall. The problem was that this all happened in the late afternoon or evening. By the time Kaigaku was banished from the temple, the sun was already setting, or had already set. The other children lied to Guillaume about where Kaigaku was. When Guillaume asked about him, they told him that Kaigaku was just sleeping. Because Guillaume was blind, he couldn't see that Kaigaku was actually missing. He had no way to verify what the children told him. He trusted them and believed their words. So Guillaume didn't know that Kaigaku was outside the temple grounds after dark, wandering around in the most dangerous time when demons hunt. Kaigaku was alone in the darkness when he encountered a demon. The demon was hunting for food, looking for humans to devour. When it saw Kaigaku, it prepared to kill him and eat him. Kaigaku was terrified. He was about to die, but instead of accepting his fate, Kaigaku made a deal with the demon. Kaigaku was fundamentally a coward. His entire personality was built around self-preservation at any cost. He would do absolutely anything to survive, no matter how evil or immoral. So when faced with death, Kaigaku offered the demon a trade. He told the demon not to eat him. Instead, he would lead the demon to a place where it could eat many more people. He told the demon about the temple where Gyomei and the other children were sleeping. He promised that if the demon spared his life, he would help it get inside and kill everyone there. The demon agreed to this deal. Kaigaku then went back to the temple. Everyone was asleep. The night was quiet and peaceful. The wisteria incense was burning, doing its job of keeping demons away. Kaigaku knew exactly what he was doing as he walked around the temple and deliberately extinguished all the wisteria incense. He put out every single flame. He removed the only protection that was keeping them safe. With the wisteria incense gone, the demon could now enter the temple freely. The barrier was broken. The demon came inside and immediately began its massacre. 4 children died first. The demon killed them instantly, before anyone even knew what was happening. The screams woke up everyone else. Gyomei immediately realized something was terribly wrong. He could hear the demon moving through the temple. He could hear the children screaming in terror. He tried to take control of the situation. Gyomei begged the remaining children to stay with him. He told them to hide behind him, to trust him, to let him protect them. He couldn't see the demon, but he could hear it. He could sense where it was. He believed he could keep the children safe if they just stayed close to him and followed his instructions. But 3 of the children didn't trust Gyomei. They looked at him and saw a blind, skinny, weak man. How could he possibly protect them from a demon? He couldn't even see. They thought running away was the better option. Despite Gyomei's desperate protests, despite him begging them to stay, 3 children panicked and tried to escape from the temple. The moment they left Gyomei's protection, they died. There were other demons lurking in the woods around the temple. The 3 children who ran were immediately caught and killed. Their decision not to trust Gyomei cost them their lives. Now only 1 child was left alive, a 4-year-old girl named Sayo. She was the youngest of all the children at the temple. Unlike the older kids who had run, Sayo listened to Gyomei. She stayed behind him, hiding, crying in fear. She trusted him to protect her. Gyomei made a decision in that moment. He would protect Sayo at any cost. He would not let the demon take this last child. Even though he was blind, even though he had never really fought before, even though he was weak and malnourished from giving away his food, Gyomei decided to fight. He attacked the demon with his bare hands. No weapon, no training, no ability to see his enemy, just his fists and his desperate determination to save Sayo. The demon fought back viciously. At some point during the battle, the demon slashed Gyomei across the forehead with its claws, creating a large horizontal scar that would remain on his face for the rest of his life. But something incredible happened during this fight. Gyomei discovered that he had immense, supernatural physical strength. He didn't know he possessed this power because he had never needed to use it before. He had lived his whole life as a peaceful monk caring for children. But now, when everything was on the line, his true strength emerged. Gyomei punched the demon over and over and over again. He beat its head repeatedly, crushing it with blows that would have killed a normal creature many times over. But demons regenerate, so the demon kept healing from his attacks. Gyomei didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He had to keep fighting until the demon was truly dead. He fought through the entire night, protecting Sayo, hitting the demon again and again until finally the sun began to rise. When sunlight touched the demon's body, it began to disintegrate. Demons cannot survive in sunlight. The demon's flesh burned away, turning to ash and vanishing completely. By the time the sun was fully up, there was no trace of the demon left, just Gyomei, covered in blood and injuries, standing protectively over little Sayo. Around them lay the bodies of 7 dead children. Soon after, villagers arrived at the temple. They had heard the commotion during the night and came to see what had happened. They were horrified by what they found. Dead children everywhere, blood covering the walls and floor, and in the middle of it all, a blind young man covered in blood, standing over a terrified 4-year-old girl. The villagers asked Sayo what had happened. Sayo was only 4 years old. She was in shock from witnessing the worst night of her life. She had watched her family get slaughtered. She was traumatized and couldn't think clearly. When the villagers asked her to explain, she said something that would destroy Gyomei's life. Sayo said, "That man is a monster. He killed everyone." Sayo was talking about the demon. In her 4-year-old mind, she was trying to tell them that a monster had killed everyone, but the villagers didn't understand. When they looked around, they saw no demon. The demon's body had completely disintegrated in the sunlight, leaving no physical evidence that it had ever existed. All the villagers saw were dead children and Gyomei. The villagers concluded that that man meant Gyomei. They thought Sayo was saying that Gyomei was the monster who had killed all the children. It seemed to make sense from their perspective. Here was a strange blind man, covered in blood, surrounded by dead children, and the only survivor was accusing him of being a monster. The villagers immediately assumed Gyomei was guilty. Gyomei was arrested on the spot. He was imprisoned and charged with murdering 7 children. The authorities didn't believe his story about a demon. Nobody could see any evidence of a demon. Gyomei tried to explain what had really happened, but he couldn't prove it. There were no witnesses except Sayo, and her confused testimony had condemned him. Gyomei went to trial. He was found guilty of mass murder. The court sentenced him to death by execution. Gyomei was going to be killed for crimes he didn't commit. He had saved Sayo's life and fought a demon with his bare hands, and his reward was to be executed as a child murderer. Gyomei sat in prison, waiting to die. He had lost everything. The children he loved were dead. The one child who survived had accidentally blamed him for their deaths. His life was over. All his kindness, all his sacrifice, all his care for those orphans had led him here, to a prison cell, waiting for an execution date. But then something happened. A man named Kagaya Ubuyashiki heard about the case. Kagaya was the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, an organization dedicated to killing demons. Kagaya had special abilities that allowed him to sense things about people. When he investigated Gyomei's situation, Kagaya realized the truth. Gyomei was innocent. A demon really had attacked the temple. Gyomei really had fought it to protect the children. Kagaya intervened just in time. He used his influence to get Gyomei released from prison before the execution could happen. Kagaya explained to Gyomei about demons and the Demon Slayer Corps. He told Gyomei that his incredible strength wasn't normal. He was born with supernatural physical power that made him stronger than almost any human alive. This strength, combined with his enhanced hearing, meant Gyomei could become an extraordinary demon slayer. Gyomei joined the Demon Slayer Corps. He poured all his grief, all his rage, all his guilt into training. He wanted to kill demons. He wanted to make sure no other children would suffer the way his children had suffered. He trained relentlessly, pushing his body far beyond normal limits. Remarkably, Gyomei became a Hashira in only 2 months. This is one of the fastest rises to Hashira rank in history. Only one other person, Muichiro Tokito, achieved Hashira status that quickly. Gyomei's combination of supernatural strength, enhanced senses, and absolute determination made him not just a Hashira, but the strongest Hashira in the entire Demon Slayer Corps. But becoming strong didn't heal his trauma. The massacre at the temple left permanent scars on Gyomei's soul, just like the demon's claws left a permanent scar on his forehead. Gyomei developed a deep distrust of people, especially children. He had been betrayed by a child. He had been blamed by a child. 7 children had died because they didn't trust him. How could he ever trust anyone again? This is why Gyomei constantly cries. He's not crying because he's weak or overly emotional. He's crying because he carries immense pain every single day. He cries for the children he failed to save. He cries for the innocence and trust that was destroyed that night. He cries because he knows how cruel the world can be, how quickly happiness can turn to tragedy, how people can betray each other for the smallest reasons. Years later, Sayo grew up and finally understood what had really happened that night. She realized that when she said, "That man is a monster," the villagers had thought she meant Gyomei, not the demon. She understood that her testimony had sent an innocent man to prison. She carried immense guilt about this for the rest of her life. She desperately wanted to find Gyomei and apologize to him, to explain that it was all a terrible misunderstanding, but they never met again. Sayo never got the chance to tell him she was sorry. Gyomei never received the closure or apology he deserved. The child who caused all of this, Kaigaku, survived and eventually became a demon himself. Years after the temple massacre, Kaigaku was training under Jigoro Kuwajima to become a demon slayer, studying alongside Zenitsu Agatsuma, but Kaigaku's cowardice never changed. When he encountered Kokushibo, the Upper Moon One demon, Kaigaku immediately surrendered and begged for his life. Kokushibo offered to turn him into a demon, and Kaigaku accepted without hesitation. His transformation into a demon caused his master Jigoro to commit ritual suicide out of shame. Even as a demon, Kaigaku felt no remorse for any of his actions. Gyomei never knew that Kaigaku was the child who had betrayed the temple. When Gyomei tells Tanjiro about the massacre, he never mentions Kaigaku by name. He doesn't seem to know which specific child made the deal with the demon. He only knows that one of the children betrayed them all. The temple massacre shaped everything about Gyomei Himejima. It's why he's so strong. It's why he became a demon slayer. It's why he cries constantly. It's why he distrusts people. It's why he tests others so harshly. He needs to know if people can be trusted before he opens his heart to them, because the last time he trusted people unconditionally, it ended in blood and death and years of suffering. When Gyomei finally does trust someone, like Tanjiro Kamado, it means something profound. Tanjiro passed all of Gyomei's tests during Hashira training. He proved his honesty, his determination, and his pure heart. This is why Gyomei opened up and told Tanjiro about the temple massacre. Sharing that story was Gyomei's way of showing ultimate trust. Gyomei Himejima's backstory is disturbing because it shows how quickly everything good can be destroyed. He was a kind man who took in orphans and raised them with love. He fed them when he couldn't feed himself. He protected them from demons every single night with wisteria incense. And in one night, because one child was selfish and cowardly, 7 children died, one child was traumatized, and Gyomei's entire life was ruined. He went from being a caretaker to being branded as a murderer, from having a family to being completely alone, from innocence to permanent trauma. This is why Gyomei is the way he is. Every tear he sheds is for those 7 children he couldn't save. Every prayer he whispers is for their souls. Every demon he kills is revenge for what happened that night. And every time he sees children suffering, he remembers Sayo hiding behind him, crying in fear as he fought desperately to keep her alive. The temple massacre was not Gyomei's fault, but he still blames himself. He still wonders if there was something he could have done differently. And that guilt, that pain, that memory will never leave him. It's why the strongest Hashira cries the most. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Akaza's Forgotten Love, the tragedy of Hakuji and Koyuki. Akaza's Forgotten Love. Akaza is Upper Moon 3, the 3rd strongest demon in existence. He killed the Flame, Hashira Kyojuro Rengoku, and nearly killed Tanjiro on the Mugen train. But over a century ago, Akaza was a human named Hakuji, and his story is the most heartbreaking tragedy in Demon Slayer. Everything he did to protect the people he loved, and when he lost them, he lost his humanity forever. Hakuji was born in the slums of Edo, which is now Tokyo. His father was sick with a disease that had no cure. They lived in poverty. Hakuji watched his father suffer every single day, coughing blood, barely able to move, slowly dying. Medicine existed that could ease his father's pain and keep him alive a little longer. But medicine cost money that Hakuji didn't have, so Hakuji became a thief. He was 11 years old when he started stealing. He would sneak through the streets of Edo, pickpocketing people, stealing wallets and coins from anyone who wasn't paying attention. He stole to buy medicine for his father. He knew it was wrong. He knew he would get caught, but watching his father die was worse than any punishment. Hakuji was caught 3 times. Each time, the magistrate beat him. Not a simple beating. They used heavy wooden rods and beat him so brutally that grown men would have passed out from the pain. But Hakuji endured it. Even at age 11, he had superhuman endurance. He survived 100 consecutive beatings that would have killed a normal person. The magistrate was so shocked by this that he called Hakuji a demon child. As punishment for stealing, they tattooed Hakuji's forearms with thick black bands. These were criminal tattoos, marks that branded him as a thief for life. The magistrate threatened that if Hakuji was caught stealing one more time, they would cut off his arms. Hakuji didn't care about the threats or the pain. He called himself a demon child and accepted it. He pointed to his own teeth, which were naturally sharp like fangs, and said this proved he was born a demon. None of it mattered to him. All that mattered was keeping his father alive. The 3rd time Hakuji was arrested, a villager went to his house and told his father what happened. His father heard that Hakuji had been caught stealing again. He heard that his son had been beaten again. He heard that his son had been branded with criminal tattoos because of him, and the guilt destroyed him. Hakuji's father hung himself. When Hakuji came home after his beating, covered in bruises and blood, he found his father's body hanging in their house. There was a letter on the ground below him. Hakuji picked up the letter with shaking hands and read his father's final words. His father wrote that he wanted Hakuji to live a full and honest life. He wrote that he didn't want to take medicine if it meant his son had to steal and suffer. He wrote that he felt like a burden and couldn't bear to watch Hakuji destroy his life anymore. Hakuji's father chose death because he loved his son too much to keep living. This broke Hakuji completely. His father was the only person he had in the world, the only person he loved, the only person he was trying to protect. And now his father was dead. Hakuji had stolen for him, been beaten for him, been branded as a criminal for him, and it was all meaningless. His father died anyway, and Hakuji was left alone with nothing but criminal tattoos and an empty house full of grief. The pain turned into rage. Hakuji couldn't understand why his father had to die while other people got to live. Why did rich people get to be healthy and happy when his father suffered and died in poverty? Why did the world punish him for trying to save the person he loved? The questions had no answers. So Hakuji stopped looking for answers and started looking for someone to hurt. He was banished from Edo because of his criminal tattoos and reputation. So Hakuji wandered from town to town, picking fights with anyone he saw. He would find groups of men and beat them unconscious with his bare fists. He wasn't trying to rob them or gain anything. He just wanted to make other people feel the pain he felt. One day, Hakuji beat 7 grown men so badly they were left half dead on the ground. Someone saw the fight and panicked. They ran to get help from the local dojo owner, a man named Keizo. Keizo arrived and found Hakuji standing over 7 unconscious men. Hakuji was 18 years old, muscular, covered in criminal tattoos, and clearly dangerous. But Keizo didn't look scared or angry. Instead, he smiled. He walked up to Hakuji calmly and started making small talk, completely ignoring the bleeding bodies on the ground. He complimented Hakuji's fighting skills. He asked where Hakuji learned to fight like that. Hakuji was confused and annoyed by Keizo's cheerful attitude, so he challenged Keizo to a fight. Keizo accepted immediately. Hakuji threw a punch at Keizo's face with all his strength, and Keizo knocked him unconscious in seconds. Hakuji didn't even see the counterattack coming. He just blinked, and then he was on the ground, and everything went black. When Hakuji woke up, he was in Keizo's dojo. Keizo explained that he was impressed by Hakuji's natural fighting ability. He saw Hakuji's criminal tattoos and understood that Hakuji had lived a hard life. Instead of judging him or turning him away, Keizo made Hakuji an offer. He told Hakuji that he could be reborn. He could leave his past behind and start over as a student of the Soryu style, a powerful martial arts technique that Keizo would teach him. But there was one condition. Keizo had a daughter named Koyuki. She was 16 years old and very sick. Her body was weak and fragile. She couldn't walk on her own. She needed help eating, bathing, changing her bedding, and moving around. Koyuki's mother had drowned herself years earlier because she couldn't handle the stress of watching her daughter suffer. Keizo had been taking care of Koyuki alone while working odd jobs to survive. He needed someone to take care of Koyuki while he worked. That someone would be Hakuji. Hakuji agreed. He had experience taking care of sick people because he had cared for his father for years. He knew how to change towels, how to help someone move without causing pain, how to prepare medicine. So Hakuji moved into Keizo's dojo and became Koyuki's caretaker. At first, Koyuki felt guilty. She knew Hakuji had to spend all his time taking care of her instead of training or living his own life. She constantly apologized for being a burden, but Hakuji never complained. He remembered how his father felt guilty for being sick, and he didn't want Koyuki to feel that same guilt. So Hakuji told her over and over that she wasn't a burden. He told her she was worth protecting. He told her she deserved to live. 3 years passed. During this time, Hakuji trained with Keizo every day, learning the Soryu-style martial arts. He became incredibly strong. He also spent every day taking care of Koyuki, and slowly, Koyuki's health improved. She started to walk on her own. She started to eat without help. She started to smile and laugh, and Hakuji fell in love with her. Koyuki fell in love with Hakuji too. She told him that before she met him, she wanted to give up on life. She was tired of being sick and in pain. She was tired of feeling like a burden. But meeting Hakuji gave her a reason to live. He made her happy. He made her feel like her life had value. One day, Keizo called Hakuji into his office. He told Hakuji that Koyuki had confessed that she liked him. Keizo asked Hakuji if he wanted to marry Koyuki and become the successor to the dojo. Both Hakuji and Koyuki blushed when they heard this. Hakuji agreed immediately. Keizo took Hakuji and Koyuki to a fireworks festival to celebrate their engagement. At the festival, Koyuki told Hakuji about how she used to want to die, but now she wanted to live a long life with him. She proposed to Hakuji. He promised her that he would become strong enough to protect her forever. They watched the fireworks together and planned their future. Hakuji promised they would come back to this festival every year after they got married. Everything was perfect. Hakuji had found a new family. He had a teacher who respected him. He had a woman who loved him. He had a purpose and a future. For the first time since his father's death, Hakuji was happy. Before the wedding, Hakuji decided to visit his father's grave. He wanted to tell his father about Koyuki and the marriage. He wanted his father to know that he had finally found happiness and that he was going to live an honest life. So Hakuji traveled back to Edo, even though he had been banished. He went to his father's grave, knelt down, and told his father everything. While Hakuji was away, someone poisoned the well at Keizo's dojo. The rival dojo next door had been jealous of Keizo for years. Their students couldn't beat Keizo or Hakuji in combat, so they decided to use cowardly methods instead. They wanted Keizo's land and his dojo for themselves. So they put poison in the well where Keizo and Koyuki got their drinking water. Kizo and Koyuki drank the water. The poison killed them both. When Hakuji returned from visiting his father's grave, he saw a crowd of people gathered outside the dojo. Something felt wrong. A student ran up to Hakuji and told him what happened. The rival dojo had poisoned the well. Keizo and Koyuki were dead. Hakuji ran inside. He found their bodies. Koyuki died quickly from the poison. Keizo suffered longer, dying slowly in pain. Hakuji knelt next to Koyuki's body and held her. She was 16 years old. He had promised to protect her. He had promised to make her happy. He had promised they would grow old together. And now she was dead in his arms, and he wasn't there when it happened. This was the second time Hakuji lost everyone he loved. His father killed himself while Hakuji was away. Koyuki and Keizo were murdered while Hakuji was away. Both times, he wasn't there to protect them. Both times, all his strength meant nothing. What good is being strong if you can't save the people you love? The grief turned into something much worse than grief. It turned into pure rage. Hakuji stood up. He left Koyuki's body in the dojo, and he walked to the rival dojo with his bare hands clenched into fists. The rival dojo had 67 members. They were trained swordsmen, adults who had practiced kenjutsu for years. They had weapons. They had numbers. They thought they were safe. Hakuji killed all 67 of them with his bare fists. He didn't just kill them. He destroyed them. He punched them so hard that their bones shattered into dust. He crushed their skulls. He tore their bodies apart with his hands. He kept hitting them even after they were dead, pulverizing their corpses until they were unrecognizable piles of meat and blood. By the time Hakuji was finished, nobody could even tell that the bodies used to be human. The entire dojo looked like a slaughterhouse. This massacre caught Muzan Kibutsuji's attention. Muzan heard rumors that a demon had slaughtered an entire dojo. He traveled to the scene because he was curious which demon had done this without his orders. But when Muzan arrived, he was disappointed. The killer wasn't a demon. It was just an 18-year-old human covered in blood and tattoos. Muzan was impressed that a human could cause this much destruction. He looked at Hakuji and saw potential. Hakuji was standing in the middle of the bodies, not moving, not speaking, not caring about anything anymore. His eyes were empty. He had nothing left to live for. Both his families were dead. All his promises were broken. All his strength was meaningless. Muzan asked Hakuji if he wanted to become a demon. Muzan offered him power, immortality, and the ability to become stronger than any human. Hakuji looked at Muzan with dead eyes and said he didn't care anymore. He didn't care about anything. There was nothing left for him in the world. If Muzan wanted to turn him into a demon, fine. It didn't matter. Muzan stabbed Hakuji in the head with his hand and forced his blood into Hakuji's body. The transformation began. Hakuji's body changed. His skin turned pale. His hair turned pink like Koyuki's kimono. Blue lines spread across his entire body, mixing with his criminal tattoos. His eyes turned yellow with strange pupils. He became a demon, but the transformation did something else too. It erased Hakuji's memories. When he woke up as a demon, he didn't remember his father. He didn't remember Koyuki. He didn't remember Keizo. He didn't remember why he wanted to be strong or who he wanted to protect. All his memories were gone. Muzan named him Akaza. Akaza retained only one feeling from his human life, a desperate need to become stronger. He didn't know why he needed to be strong. He didn't know what he was trying to protect. But the desire to become powerful consumed him completely. So, Akaza spent the next century fighting and killing, searching for strength, without knowing why he was searching. Muzan was impressed by Akaza's loyalty and strength. Akaza became one of Muzan's favorite demons, and rose to the position of Upper Moon 3. But Akaza had one strange rule that no other demon followed. He refused to eat women. Even though eating women would make him stronger, Akaza never killed or ate a single woman in over 100 years. Muzan teased him about this rule and told him to drop it, but Akaza refused. He didn't know why he refused. The memory of Koyuki was completely erased from his mind, but somewhere deep in his subconscious, some part of Hakuji still existed, still protecting the memory of the girl he loved. Akaza's blood demon art was based on martial arts, the same Soryu style that Keizo taught him. His techniques were named after fireworks, the same fireworks he promised to watch with Koyuki. His compass needle technique created a snowflake pattern on the ground, just like the snowflake hairpins Koyuki wore in her hair. Even though Akaza didn't remember any of this, his fighting style was built from the memories of his human life. This is why Akaza constantly challenged strong opponents to become demons. When he fought Kyojuro Rengoku, he begged Rengoku to accept immortality and become a demon so they could fight forever. Akaza believed that humans were weak because they grow old and die. He believed that only by becoming a demon could someone become truly strong and protect what they love. But Akaza was wrong. The truth is that Akaza became a demon because he failed to protect what he loved. His father died while he was stealing. Koyuki died while he was visiting a grave. He wasn't there when it mattered. His strength was meaningless. And instead of accepting this and moving forward as a human, Hakuji gave up his humanity and became a monster who forgot why he wanted to be strong in the first place. Akaza's story is disturbing because it shows how trauma and loss can destroy a person completely. Hakuji wasn't evil. He was a good person who tried to save his father, who learned to love again, who promised to protect Koyuki. But the world took everything from him twice, and the pain was too much to bear. When Muzan offered him an escape, Hakuji accepted because living as a human hurt too much. He chose to become a demon and lose his memories, rather than live with the guilt and grief of failing the people he loved. For over a century, Akaza fought without knowing why. He killed Hashira without understanding his hatred for weakness. He respected strength without remembering that his own strength failed to save anyone. The saddest part is that even as a demon, even without his memories, Akaza never stopped trying to protect Koyuki. His refusal to harm women was his subconscious mind keeping the promise he made to her. The pink hair, the snowflake patterns, the fireworks techniques, they were all Akaza's way of holding on to something he couldn't remember but couldn't let go. When Akaza finally regained his memories during his battle with Tanjiro and Giyu, he remembered everything. He remembered his father's suicide. He remembered Koyuki's death. He remembered his promise to protect her. And he realized that he had spent over a century as a monster, killing innocent people, breaking his father's wish for him to live an honest life. The guilt destroyed him. In his final moments, Akaza chose to destroy himself. He used his own blood demon art to prevent his body from regenerating and let himself die. Muzan tried to take control of Akaza's body and force him to keep fighting, but Koyuki's spirit appeared and pulled Akaza away from Muzan's influence. She told Akaza that it was okay now, that he had done enough, that he could rest. Akaza cried and apologized for not being there to protect her, and together, their spirits disappeared as Akaza's body turned to ash. Hakuji's soul went to hell because of all the people he killed as Akaza, but even in hell, he was reunited with Koyuki, his father, and Keizo. They forgave him, and finally, after over a century of pain and searching for strength he didn't understand, Hakuji found peace. Akaza's backstory is the tragedy of a man who wanted nothing more than to protect the people he loved. He tried as hard as he could. He stole for his father. He trained for Koyuki. He became strong for both of them. But life is cruel and random, and strength alone isn't enough to save anyone. His father died anyway. Koyuki died anyway. And Hakuji's response to this unbearable pain was to give up his humanity and become the very thing his father told him not to become: a demon, a monster. Someone who lived a life of violence and sin for over 100 years, forgetting why he ever wanted to be strong in the first place. The most disturbing part is that it didn't have to end this way. If Hakuji had been at the dojo when the well was poisoned, he could have stopped Koyuki and Keizo from drinking the water. If he had stayed home instead of visiting his father's grave, 2 people would still be alive, and Hakuji would have lived a happy human life, but he wasn't there. And that absence, that single moment of not being there when it mattered, destroyed everything. It turned a good man into Upper Moon 3, one of the most dangerous demons in existence, all because he couldn't handle the pain of losing his family twice. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Gyutaro and Daki's entertainment district hell, born into syphilis and starvation. 2 demons who share the same rank and the same body. They terrorized the entertainment district for over a century, killing 22 Hashira combined before Tanjiro and his friends finally defeated them. But before they were demons, they were human siblings named Gyutaro and Ume, born into the worst poverty imaginable in the slums of Yoshiwara. Their story is disturbing because they were never given a chance. They were born into hell, and hell never let them go. Over a century ago, during the Edo period, Gyutaro was born in the Rashomon riverbank. This was the absolute lowest part of the entertainment district. Not just poor, the place where people went to die. The entertainment district was built on beauty. If you were beautiful, you could become an oiran, a high-ranking courtesan who lived in luxury. If you were ugly or old or sick, you were thrown into the Rashomon riverbank and forgotten. Gyutaro's mother was a prostitute who worked in the Rashomon riverbank. She was mentally unstable and abusive. She didn't want Gyutaro. Before he was even born, she tried to kill herself multiple times because she couldn't afford another mouth to feed. When those attempts failed and Gyutaro was born anyway, she tried to kill him. Multiple times, she would beat him, starve him, and do everything she could to get rid of him. But somehow, Gyutaro survived. Gyutaro's mother likely died of syphilis, a sexually transmitted disease she contracted while working as a prostitute. Syphilis was common in the entertainment district and often fatal during the Edo period. Gyutaro himself probably had congenital syphilis, which is when a pregnant mother passes the infection to her baby. This explains Gyutaro's appearance. Congenital syphilis causes deformed bones, crooked and missing teeth, inflamed gums, skin covered in rashes and blotches, and severe physical deformities. From the day he was born, Gyutaro was ugly, not normal ugly, deformed ugly. His skin was covered in black spots, his teeth were jagged and rotten, his body was skeletal and twisted, and in a place where beauty determined your worth, being ugly meant you were worthless. Gyutaro never had a real name. His mother didn't name him. Nobody cared enough to give him one. He eventually named himself Gyutaro after a job he worked briefly as a gyu, which was a barker in the entertainment district. His job was to stand outside brothels and convince customers to come inside. It was the lowest job in the district, and even then, Gyutaro didn't keep it for long. Gyutaro's childhood was starvation and abuse. His mother wouldn't feed him. Nobody in the Rashomon riverbank would help him. People called him a demon child, threw rocks at him, beat him, and chased him away whenever he came near them. They said he was too ugly to look at. They said he smelled bad. They hated him for existing. Without money or food, Gyutaro ate whatever he could find. He ate insects, cockroaches, beetles, worms, anything that crawled on the ground. He ate rats and mice. He would hunt them with a small sickle that a customer had left behind in the district. That rusty sickle became his only possession, his only toy, and his only way to survive. Gyutaro spent his entire childhood eating bugs and rats while people threw rocks at him and told him to die. Gyutaro had no reason to keep living, no hope, no kindness, no future. He was a starving, ugly child in a world that hated him. And then his sister was born. Her name was Ume, and she was beautiful. Ume had pale white hair, bright eyes, and delicate features. She was the opposite of Gyutaro in every way. While Gyutaro was deformed and hideous, Ume was stunning. From the moment she was born, everyone could see that Ume had the potential to become a great Oiran someday. Her beauty could lift her out of the Rashomon riverbank and into the upper levels of the entertainment district, where money and luxury existed. But their mother hated Ume too. When Ume was born, their mother tried to kill her because she hated Ume's hair and eye color. Before their mother could succeed, she died of syphilis. The disease that killed her was called Ume in certain kanji readings. That's how their mother died, and that's what she named her daughter, Ume, syphilis, the disease that killed her. After their mother died, Gyutaro and Ume were orphaned. Gyutaro was still just a young boy, and Ume was barely a toddler. They had no home, no food, no family, and no one who cared if they lived or died. But Gyutaro didn't give up. For the first time in his life, he had something to protect. His little sister's beauty gave him hope. If Ume could become an Oiran, she could escape poverty. She could have a good life. She could avoid all the suffering Gyutaro endured. Gyutaro took care of Ume. He fed her. He protected her. He made sure she stayed clean and beautiful, while he remained filthy and starving. Gyutaro found work as a debt collector in the entertainment district. It was dangerous, violent work. He had to threaten people, hurt them, sometimes kill them if they didn't pay their debts. But Gyutaro was good at it, because he had spent his entire life surviving through violence. People were terrified of him. They called him a monster. And Gyutaro didn't care, as long as it meant Ume could eat. Eventually, Ume's beauty attracted attention. She was taken in by a brothel and began training to become an Oiran. This was what Gyutaro wanted. Ume was climbing out of the Rashomon riverbank. She was moving up in the world. Gyutaro continued working as her collector, making sure she had everything she needed. For the first time, things were looking up. They had money, they had food, they had better clothes. Ume was safe and on her way to becoming successful. And then everything fell apart. When Ume was 13 years old, a samurai customer insulted Gyutaro. He said disgusting things about Gyutaro's appearance, about how ugly and revolting he was. Ume heard this. She loved her brother. She was proud of him. She knew Gyutaro had sacrificed everything to protect her and give her a better life. So when the samurai insulted Gyutaro, Ume grabbed a hairpin and stabbed the samurai in the eye. She blinded him. The samurai was a paying customer. The brothel owner was furious. Ume had attacked a samurai, and that was unforgivable. As punishment, the brothel owner and others tied Ume up and burned her alive. Gyutaro was away working when this happened. He wasn't there to protect her. By the time he returned to the brothel, Ume's body was already burned and charred, barely alive. Gyutaro found her lying in the street, her skin blackened and peeling, her body destroyed. She was 13 years old and dying because she defended her brother. Gyutaro fell to his knees and held Ume's burned body. He cried and begged her to come back, to be okay, to not leave him alone. And then the samurai appeared, the same samurai Ume had stabbed. He was furious and wanted revenge. He slashed Gyutaro's back open with a katana, a deep wound meant to kill him. But Gyutaro didn't die. Even with a massive wound in his back, even while bleeding heavily, Gyutaro stood up. He grabbed his sickle, the same rusty sickle he had used to hunt rats as a child, and he killed the samurai in one strike. Then he killed the brothel manager who had burned Ume alive. Gyutaro picked up Ume's dying body and carried her through the entertainment district, desperately searching for help. He begged people to save his sister. He stumbled through the snow, bleeding from his back, holding Ume in his arms, but nobody helped them. People saw Gyutaro, the ugly demon child they always hated, and they turned away. They let him bleed. They let Ume die. Nobody cared. Gyutaro collapsed in the snow. He and Ume were both dying. He had no strength left. Everything he had done, all the suffering, all the work to protect Ume, it all meant nothing. She was going to die anyway, and Gyutaro would die alone, just like he had always been alone, in a world that never wanted him. And then Doma appeared. Doma was Upper Moon 2, one of the most powerful demons in existence. He was wandering through the entertainment district that night, eating people, when he stumbled upon Gyutaro and Ume lying in the snow, bleeding and dying. Doma looked at them and smiled. He was fascinated by Gyutaro's hatred. He could sense the rage and despair pouring out of Gyutaro, all the years of suffering and humiliation twisted into pure malice. Doma found it beautiful. Doma offered Gyutaro a deal. He could turn them into demons. They would become immortal. They would become powerful. They would never starve again. They would never be weak again. And they could take revenge on everyone who hurt them. Gyutaro looked at Ume's dying body. He had nothing left, no reason to stay human, no hope for a better life. All he had was his sister, and she was dying in his arms. So Gyutaro accepted. He told Doma to turn them both into demons. Doma gave them his blood. The transformation began. Gyutaro's body changed. His skin turned gray, and the black spots spread across his entire body. His teeth became sharper. His eyes turned yellow with strange pupils that had the kanji for upper rank and 6 carved into them. His hair turned black at the roots and bright green at the ends. Ume transformed too. Her burnt skin healed. Her hair turned white with lime green tips. Her eyes became bright and colorful. She became even more beautiful than before. But they weren't Gyutaro and Ume anymore. They were demons now. Gyutaro kept his name. Ume changed hers to Daki, which means fallen princess. They lost their memories of their human lives. They forgot why they suffered. They forgot their mother. They forgot the Rashomon riverbank. All they remembered was hatred. Hatred for beauty. Hatred for people who had easy lives. Hatred for the world that rejected them. Gyutaro and Daki stayed in the entertainment district. They killed people. They ate people. Daki used her beauty to lure men and women, then trapped them with her obi sashes and devoured them. Gyutaro hid inside Daki's body most of the time, only emerging when she needed help or when she called for him. Together, they were unstoppable. They killed 15 Hashira over the course of a century. Daki killed 7 more on her own. Muzan Kibutsuji, the Demon King, acknowledged Gyutaro as the true Upper Moon 6. He recognized that Daki was weaker and only held the rank because she was attached to Gyutaro. But Muzan allowed it because Gyutaro was one of his favorites. Muzan valued Gyutaro's hatred and his greedy, spiteful personality. Gyutaro believed that anyone who had a better life than him deserved to die. He believed in taking from others what was never given to him, and Muzan found this belief admirable. But even as a demon, even after losing his memories, Gyutaro never stopped protecting Daki. Their bond as siblings remained. Gyutaro gave Daki one of his eyes so he could see through it and watch over her during battles. He would emerge from her body instantly whenever she was in danger. He killed anyone who hurt her. He spoiled her and let her do whatever she wanted. Daki, in turn, relied completely on Gyutaro. She called for him whenever she was scared or losing a fight. She trusted him more than anyone or anything. The disturbing truth about Gyutaro and Daki is that they were victims long before they became monsters. Gyutaro never had a chance at a normal life. He was born with a disease that made him ugly. He was born to a mother who tried to kill him. He was born into a society that measured human worth by beauty, and he had none. He spent his childhood eating insects and being beaten by strangers. The only good thing in his life was his little sister, and when she was burned alive for defending him, Gyutaro's last bit of humanity died with her. Daki never had a chance either. She was born beautiful, but she was also born into poverty and named after the disease that killed her mother. She was raised by a brother who had been brutalized his entire life, so she learned his violence and his hatred. She learned to be selfish and cruel because that's what Gyutaro taught her to survive. When she was 13 years old, she defended her brother and was burned alive as punishment. She died screaming in pain, and the last thing she saw before becoming a demon was her brother's face, covered in blood and despair. When Tanjiro and his friends finally defeated Gyutaro and Daki, the siblings' heads were severed at the same time. As they lay dying, their demon bodies disintegrating, Gyutaro and Daki started arguing. Gyutaro said terrible things. He said Daki was worthless. He said his life would have been better if she was never born. He wished she had been raised by someone else. Tanjiro covered Gyutaro's mouth and told him to stop. Tanjiro said, Gyutaro didn't mean any of those words. He said the siblings only had each other left in the world. And Daki's head disintegrated, screaming for her brother to save her one last time. In the afterlife, Gyutaro and Daki stood between heaven and hell. A light appeared in front of them, leading to heaven. Gyutaro told Daki to go toward the light. He told her to go to heaven and leave him behind. He said she deserved a fresh start without his influence. He said everything bad that happened to her was his fault because he raised her wrong. He blamed himself for turning her into a demon, for teaching her to be cruel, for ruining any chance she had at becoming a good person. Daki refused. She grabbed Gyutaro's hand and started crying. She told him she would never leave him. She reminded him of the promise they made as children. No matter how many times they were reborn, they would always be siblings. They would always be together. So Gyutaro picked Daki up and carried her on his back, just like he did when they were children. And together, they walked away from the light. They walked toward hell. Because even in death, even knowing they were going to suffer for eternity, they chose each other. Gyutaro and Daki's story is disturbing because it shows how poverty, abuse, and cruelty can destroy people before they even have a chance to become good. Gyutaro was born deformed and starving. Nobody loved him. Nobody helped him. He ate rats to survive while people threw rocks at him. The only person who ever cared about him was his little sister. And when she was burned alive, Gyutaro had nothing left except rage. Daki was born beautiful, but beauty doesn't protect you from being named after a disease, from having an abusive mother, from growing up in the worst slum in Japan. Her beauty got her burned alive at 13 years old. She died protecting her brother, the only person who ever loved her. They became demons not because they were evil, but because they had nothing else. Dying as humans meant dying alone and forgotten in the snow. Becoming demons meant staying together forever, which was the only thing either of them ever wanted. They spent over a century killing people, eating people, and terrorizing the entertainment district. They were monsters, but they were also two siblings who loved each other in a world that gave them nothing but pain. The most disturbing part is that if Gyutaro and Daki had been born into a normal family, they could have been good people. If Gyutaro had been healthy and cared for, he could have been a kind older brother. If Ume had been raised with love and proper morals instead of survival instincts, she could have been a sweet girl. But they weren't born into a normal family. They were born into the Rashomon riverbank, where children were hated, where beauty was everything, where starvation and disease and abuse were normal. They were born into hell, and they never escaped it, even after death. This is why Tanjiro felt sorry for them. He saw himself and Nezuko in Gyutaro and Daki. Both pairs of siblings lost their families. Both pairs endured poverty and hardship. Both pairs had an older sibling protecting a younger sibling. The only difference is that Tanjiro's family loved him. Tanjiro grew up with warmth and kindness, even in poverty. Gyutaro grew up with nothing but hatred and violence. And that difference, that one single difference of being loved or being hated, determined whether they became heroes or monsters. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Tanjiro becomes the Demon King, Muzan's final gambit. Tanjiro Kamado spent his entire life fighting demons. He became a demon slayer to save his sister Nezuko and avenge his family. He trained until his body broke. He fought upper moons. He mastered sun breathing, the strongest technique ever created. And in the final battle against Muzan Kibutsuji, Tanjiro did everything right. He struck Muzan from inside the Demon King's own body. He held him in place until sunrise. He watched Muzan burn in the sun and disintegrate into ash. Tanjiro won. The Demon King was dead. The 1,000-year war between humans and demons was finally over. And then Muzan made Tanjiro the new Demon King. The final arc of Demon Slayer is called the Sunrise Countdown Arc. After a night-long battle in the Infinity Castle, the Demon Slayer Corps managed to drag Muzan outside and expose him to sunlight. Muzan tried everything to escape. He created whips from his body and massacred dozens of Demon Slayers. He fought Gyome Himejima, Sanemi Shinazugawa, Giyu Tomioka, Obanai Iguro, Mitsuri Kanroji, and every surviving member of the Corps. The Hashira were dying. Gyome's legs were crushed. Obanai was blinded. Mitsuri was impaled. Tanjiro himself was covered in wounds, his body broken from the poison Muzan had infected him with. But they held Muzan in place. The sun rose, and Muzan started burning. During the battle, Muzan had swallowed Tanjiro with his blood demon art, trapping him inside a cocoon of flesh to use as a shield against the sunlight. As Muzan disintegrated, Tanjiro was still inside his body. The other demon slayers found Tanjiro lying on the ground after Muzan's body burned away. Tanjiro was not breathing. His heart had stopped. There was a massive tumor growing on his face from Muzan's poison. Tanjiro was dead. Giyu Tomioka knelt beside Tanjiro's body. The surviving Kakushi and demon slayers gathered around, crying. They had won, but Tanjiro was gone. After everything he sacrificed, after all his determination to save Nezuko and defeat Muzan, Tanjiro died before seeing the world he fought for. But Muzan Kibutsuji was not done. As Muzan burned in the sunlight, his body disintegrating, he thought about his life. Muzan had been close to death since the day he was born. He was stillborn. His heart stopped before he even took his first breath. Doctors tried to cremate his body, but then he suddenly started crying. Muzan survived, and from that moment on, he spent his entire existence running from death. He became a demon. He lived for over 1,000 years. He created an army of demons and ruled through fear and blood. But in the end, death caught him anyway. Muzan refused to accept this. He remembered what Kagaya Ubuyashiki told him before he died. Kagaya said that human thoughts and feelings are the only truly immortal things. Muzan twisted this idea. He decided that if his body would die, his thoughts would live on through someone else, and he chose Tanjiro Kamado. Muzan looked at Tanjiro's body, lying inside the remains of his flesh cocoon. Tanjiro was dead. His heart had stopped, but some of Tanjiro's cells were still alive. Muzan realized he could use this. With the last of his power, with his body literally turning to ash in the sunlight, Muzan forced every drop of his remaining blood into Tanjiro's body. All of it. Over 1,000 years of accumulated power, all of Muzan's demon blood, pumped directly into Tanjiro's dead corpse. Muzan's final words were a command. He told Tanjiro that he would become the strongest demon to ever exist. Tanjiro was Nezuko's brother, and Nezuko had conquered the Sunday. Tanjiro could use sun breathing, the same technique that nearly killed Muzan centuries ago. Muzan believed that Tanjiro would be immune to sunlight and unstoppable, and Muzan's final wish was for Tanjiro to destroy the Demon Slayer core in his place. As the last pieces of Muzan's body crumbled into nothing, he smiled. He believed Tanjiro would not die. He believed his will would live on forever. For a moment, nothing happened. Giyu knelt beside Tanjiro. The Kakushi cried. Everyone thought it was over. Then the tumor on Tanjiro's face disappeared. His eyes opened, and they were demon eyes, slit pupils, red sclera, the gaze of a predator. Tanjiro's left arm, which had been severed during the battle, regenerated instantly. His wounds healed, his body stood up, but Tanjiro was not in control anymore. The demon inside him took over. Tanjiro's mouth hung open, drooling. He stared at his new fangs and claws with savage pleasure. Everyone stepped back in horror. Tanjiro's Demon Slayer mark mutated. It grew longer, spreading down past his nose. A second mark appeared on the other side of his face, growing up from his neck. Then a third mark appeared on his forehead. The marks were flame-shaped, similar to Kokushibo's marks, and they covered most of Tanjiro's face. His scar became a permanent mark that looked like burning flames. Giyu realized what happened first. He yelled for everyone to grab weapons and prepare to fight. He announced that Tanjiro had become a demon. Tanjiro moved. He was fast, faster than before. He swiped at a Kakushi standing nearby. Giyu reacted instantly and pushed the Kakushi out of the way, saving his life. The other Kakushi screamed and asked why Tanjiro was attacking them, but Tanjiro didn't respond. He acted like a feral beast, mindless and violent, attacking anyone in sight without hesitation. The sun was shining. It was full daylight. Everyone expected Tanjiro to burn like every other demon, but Tanjiro looked directly at the sun and did not burn. Muzan was right. Tanjiro had inherited Nezuko's immunity to sunlight. He was the first demon in history who could walk in daylight and could not be killed by decapitation because he knew sun breathing. Tanjiro had become exactly what Muzan wanted, the perfect unkillable demon king. Giyu prepared to fight. Inosuke Hashibira arrived, still wounded from the battle with Muzan. Zenitsu Agatsuma limped forward, supported by a Kakushi. They all stared at their friend, now transformed into a monster. Inosuke reminded Tanjiro that Giyu was their ally. Zenitsu begged Tanjiro to think about Nezuko, but Tanjiro crouched down, bared his fangs, and leaped at Inosuke to attack. Inosuke couldn't do it. He stood there, frozen, unable to strike at Tanjiro. They were comrades, brothers. Inosuke thought about all the time they spent together. He told himself that they would always pull each other back if one of them went down the wrong path. No matter how difficult it was, they would walk the right path together. But Tanjiro was a demon now, and Inosuke had to make a choice. Before Inosuke could act, Nezuko ran forward. She had just been turned back into a human. After years of being a demon, she was cured. She was supposed to be safe. But when she saw her brother attacking their friends, Nezuko didn't hesitate. She threw herself at Tanjiro and hugged him tightly. Nezuko was crying. She apologized to Tanjiro for everything he had to endure to save her. She told him how difficult it must have been. She begged him to resist becoming a demon. She told him to come home with her. Tanjiro grabbed Nezuko. His claws dug into her arms, and then he bit her shoulder. Tanjiro sank his fangs into Nezuko's flesh and tasted her blood. Everyone watched in horror. Tanjiro was biting his own sister, the person he had spent years trying to save. But after tasting her blood, Tanjiro stopped. He didn't drink. Something inside him, some small part of his humanity, refused to hurt Nezuko. This was the only sign that Tanjiro was still fighting the demon inside him. But it wasn't enough. Inosuke, frustrated and desperate, ran forward and punched Tanjiro several times, trying to snap him out of it. The punches only made things worse. Tanjiro's body evolved further. Bone appendages erupted from his back, just like the whips Muzan used. Tanjiro now had the same blood demon art as Muzan Kibutsuji. He was becoming more powerful, more demonic, losing more of his humanity with every second. Nezuko kept begging Tanjiro to not lose himself to Muzan, but Tanjiro swung one of his bone appendages at Zenitsu. Giyu used water-breathing fourth form to save Zenitsu and several Kakushi from the attack. Tanjiro then began generating an energy ball, preparing to unleash a massive attack on everyone. Nezuko threw herself in front of the attack. The energy ball hit her directly, severely damaging her arm. Zenitsu screamed, horrified that Nezuko might die by Tanjiro's hands. Giyu and Yushiro, the last surviving demon besides Tanjiro, watched helplessly. They didn't know how to stop him. Everyone was exhausted from the battle with Muzan. Most of the demon slayers were dead or dying, and now they had to fight the person they just risked everything to save. Then Kanao Tsuyuri arrived. Kanao was severely wounded from the battle with Muzan. She had already lost one eye earlier in the war, but she was still alive, and she was carrying something important. In her pocket was a vial of medicine. This medicine was created by Tamayo and Shinobu Kocho working together. It was the same medicine that turned Nezuko back into a human. Before Shinobu died, she gave an extra vial to Kanao, just in case something went wrong. Kanao looked at Tanjiro attacking his friends. She looked at Nezuko crying and bleeding. Kanao made her decision. She would save Tanjiro, even if it cost her everything. Kanao activated Flower-Breathing Final Form, Equinoctial Vermilion Eye. This technique dramatically increases speed and reflexes, but it destroys the user's eyesight. Kanao had already lost one eye. Using this technique on her remaining eye meant she would go completely blind. But Kanao didn't care. She analyzed Tanjiro's movements. She calculated that since he had just become a demon, she could dodge his attacks even with one eye. Kanao charged forward at incredible speed. Giyu recognized the technique as Kanai Kocho's signature move. Tanjiro swiped at Kanao with his claws. Kanao backflipped over him and injected the medicine into his body. At the same moment, Tanjiro redirected his bone appendage and slashed Kanao across the torso. Kanao fell to the ground, bleeding heavily, but she had succeeded. The medicine was inside Tanjiro. As Kanao collapsed, she whispered to Tanjiro that it was enough. It was time for him to come back to them. She told him not to make Nezuko cry, and something stirred inside Tanjiro's consciousness when he heard Nezuko's name. Inside Tanjiro's mind, he found himself standing in darkness. Muzan Kibutsuji appeared before him, not as ash or a dying memory, but as a complete being. Muzan tried to convince Tanjiro to give in to the demon inside him. He told Tanjiro to let himself be consumed by the desire to become the ultimate being. Muzan offered Tanjiro eternal life, infinite power, and the ability to never lose anyone again because he would be too strong for anyone to hurt. But Tanjiro refused. He rejected Muzan's offer completely, and then the darkness around Tanjiro changed. The ground beneath him turned into a field of wisteria flowers, the purple blooms that demons hate, and from beneath the wisteria, hands began reaching up toward Tanjiro, the hands of everyone he loved, his mother, his siblings, Kyojuro Rengoku, Shinobu Kocho, Kanei Kocho, Genya Shinazugawa, all the people who had died, all the people who believed in him, and mixed with the dead were the hands of the living, Nezuko, Zenitsu, Inosuke, Giyu, Kanao, everyone who was still fighting for him. The hands pushed Tanjiro up through the wisteria flowers. They pulled him away from Muzan. Tanjiro reached out and grabbed their hands. He accepted their help, and Muzan faded away, defeated for good. In the real world, Tanjiro's demon body stopped moving. Everyone held their breath. Then Tanjiro's eyes changed back to normal. His marks faded, his fangs disappeared. He collapsed to the ground as a human. Tanjiro woke up, surrounded by everyone. Nezuko was crying tears of joy. Zenitsu and Inosuke were sobbing. Giyu smiled. Kanao, despite her injuries and blindness, managed to smile at Tanjiro, and Tanjiro smiled back. He was human again. The disturbing truth about Tanjiro becoming the Demon King is that he was completely helpless to stop it. Tanjiro did everything right. He trained harder than anyone. He never gave up. He defeated Muzan, and his reward was being turned into the very thing he spent his entire life fighting against. Tanjiro became a demon not because he was weak, but because Muzan refused to let humanity win. Even in death, Muzan tried to force Tanjiro to carry on his legacy of hatred and violence. What makes this even more disturbing is how close it came to succeeding. Tanjiro attacked his friends. He bit Nezuko. He nearly killed everyone with his blood demon art. If Kanao hadn't arrived with the medicine, if she hadn't been willing to sacrifice her sight, if Tanjiro's friends hadn't refused to give up on him, the story would have ended with Demon King Tanjiro ruling the world. All of Muzan's dreams would have come true through Tanjiro's body. The aftermath was not kind to Tanjiro. 3 months later, when he woke up in the butterfly estate, he learned the price of his transformation. His regenerated left arm had aged rapidly and lost all sensation from the elbow down. His regenerated right eye was permanently damaged, blind, and discolored. Kanao lost her remaining eye and was completely blind. Gyomei, Obanai, and Mitsuri all died from their wounds. The Demon Slayer Corps was disbanded because there were no more demons left to fight. Tanjiro survived, but he was never the same. Every time he looked at his useless arm or his blind eye, he remembered being a demon. He remembered biting Nezuko. He remembered attacking his friends. He remembered Muzan's voice in his head, trying to make him into a monster. The war was over, but the trauma remained. The most disturbing part is that Tanjiro was technically dead when Muzan transformed him. His heart had stopped. He wasn't breathing. Tanjiro died defeating Muzan, and Muzan brought him back as a demon against his will. Tanjiro had no choice. He didn't accept Muzan's blood voluntarily like other demons. He was literally a corpse that Muzan puppeteered with demon blood. And for those few minutes when Tanjiro was a demon, he experienced what it was like to lose all humanity, to become the monster he had always fought against. This is why Tanjiro's transformation is so disturbing. It shows that even the purest person, someone who spent his entire life helping others and showing compassion to demons, can be turned into a monster through no fault of his own. It shows that evil can corrupt anyone if given enough power. And it shows that Muzanki Butsuji was so hateful, so determined to win, that he would rather destroy the person who defeated him than accept his own death. Tanjiro becoming the Demon King was Muzan's final gambit, his last attempt to ensure his thoughts and will survived even after his body turned to ash, and it nearly worked. The only reason it failed was because Tanjiro had people who loved him enough to fight for him, even when he was fighting against them. Nezuko hugged him, even as he bit her. Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Giyu fought to save him instead of killing him. Kanao sacrificed her sight to inject him with the cure, and all the people who died reaching out from beyond death to pull Tanjiro back to humanity. Without them, Tanjiro would have remained the Demon King forever, and Muzanki Butsuji would have won. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Kokushibo's 500-year jealousy, the brother who chose eternal hatred. Kokushibo is Upper Moon 1, the strongest demon in existence, besides Muzanki Butsuji himself. He killed numerous Hashira over nearly 5 centuries. His swordsmanship was flawless. His blood demon art could slice through buildings. He had 6 eyes that saw everything, and he spent 480 years as a demon chasing a goal he could never achieve. Because Kokushibo was born with a name that meant nothing compared to his younger twin brother, Yoriichi Tsugikuni, the most powerful demon slayer who ever lived. Before Kokushibo became a demon, he was a human named Michikatsu Tsugikuni. He was born during the Sengoku period, nearly 500 years before Tanjiro's time. Michikatsu and Yoriichi were identical twin brothers, born into a high-ranking samurai family. But in the Sengoku era, twins were considered a terrible omen. People believed that twins brought bad luck and misfortune to their families. When Michikatsu and Yoriichi were born, their father had to choose which son would be the heir and which son would be discarded. The choice was easy. Yoriichi was born with a strange birthmark on his forehead. The mark was large, disfiguring, and ugly. Their father saw this mark and immediately declared that Yoriichi would be killed. Their mother, Akeno Tsugikuni, flew into a rage. She refused to let her husband kill their newborn son. After a violent argument, their father agreed to spare Yoriichi's life, but only under one condition. When Yoriichi turned 10 years old, he would be sent away to a temple to become a monk. He would never inherit anything. He would never become a samurai. He would live his life isolated from the family and forgotten. Michikatsu was chosen as the heir. He was the older twin, the one without the ugly mark, the one who would inherit their father's position and carry on the family name. Michikatsu grew up with the best education, the best food, and the best training. Yoriichi, on the other hand, was confined to a small 3-tatami room, separate from the rest of the house. He was given poor food and no education. He was kept away from Michikatsu and treated like he didn't exist. But Michikatsu didn't hate his brother. Even though their father forbade them from interacting, Michikatsu would sneak out at night to visit Yoriichi's tiny room. He saw how Yoriichi clung to their mother's side all the time. Yoriichi never spoke. Everyone believed he was deaf and mute. Michikatsu pitied Yoriichi. He thought his younger brother was weak, fragile, and dependent on their mother because he had nothing else. One night, Michikatsu gave Yoriichi a gift. He had carved a small wooden flute with his own hands. The flute didn't play in tune. It was rough and poorly made. But Michikatsu told Yoriichi to blow on it if he was ever in trouble, and Michikatsu would come to protect him. Yoriichi accepted the flute. He held it close to his chest and treasured it. This confused Michikatsu. He couldn't understand why Yoriichi would cherish a broken flute that couldn't even make proper music. But Yoriichi smiled at him. It was the first time Michikatsu ever saw his brother smile. When Michikatsu was 7 years old, he was training in swordsmanship, practicing his swings over and over. Yoriichi watched him train from a distance. Then one day, Yoriichi spoke for the first time in his life. His voice was clear, calm, and mature, like a fully grown man's voice. Yoriichi told Michikatsu that he wanted to become the second best swordsman in the world, right after his brother. Michikatsu was shocked. His brother, who everyone thought was mute, could speak perfectly. One of their father's instructors overheard Yoriichi's declaration and decided to humor him. The instructor showed Yoriichi a basic sword stance and told him to try striking him. Yoriichi took a deep breath, assumed the stance perfectly, and then moved. He landed 4 clean blows on the instructor in seconds, knocking the grown man unconscious. Michikatsu stared in disbelief. He had been training for years under that same instructor. He practiced every single day, pushing himself to his limits, and he had never once landed a successful blow. But Yoriichi, who had never held a sword before, landed 4 blows instantly on his first attempt. Michikatsu begged Yoriichi to explain how he did it. Yoriichi said that when he took a deep breath before his stance, he could see everything. He could see the instructor's muscles, bones, and blood flow. He could see exactly where to strike. This confused Michikatsu even more. What Yoriichi described didn't make sense, but it would later be understood as the foundation of breathing styles and the transparent world technique that only the strongest demon slayers could achieve. After demonstrating his ability, Yoriichi said he never wanted to use a sword again. He hated the feeling of hitting someone. He gave up his dream of becoming a samurai. This infuriated Michikatsu. He watched his brother, who possessed natural genius talent, decide to waste it. Michikatsu trained harder. He pursued mastery of the blade with intense focus, trying to reach the level Yoriichi had already surpassed without effort. Then their mother died. She had been terminally ill for years, slowly weakening. Yoriichi had known about her illness the entire time. His strange ability to see inside living bodies allowed him to see how sick she was, how her left side was weakening. That's why Yoriichi clung to her, not because he was weak or dependent, but because he was supporting her, helping her move around, staying by her side during her final days. The night their mother died, Yoriichi came to Michikatsu's room at 3 in the morning. He told his brother the news. He said goodbye. He was leaving to become a monk, just as their father had planned. Before he left, Yoriichi pulled out the wooden flute Michikatsu had given him years ago. Yoriichi smiled and said the flute was precious to him. He said whenever he held it, he thought of his brother. Michikatsu watched Yoriichi leave in silence. He was disturbed by Yoriichi's smile. He was confused about why Yoriichi treasured that useless, broken flute. And when Michikatsu read their mother's diary after her death, he discovered the truth. Yoriichi wasn't clinging to their mother out of weakness. He was supporting her because he knew she was dying. While Michikatsu trained and pursued glory, Yoriichi quietly took care of their mother during her final moments. This realization planted something dark inside Michikatsu: jealousy, hatred. He began to wish that Yoriichi had never been born. 10 years passed. Michikatsu continued his training and eventually married. He had a loving wife and 2 children. He was living a good life as the heir to the Tsugikuni family. Then one night, Michikatsu was attacked by a demon. The demon was about to kill him when Yoriichi appeared and saved him. Yoriichi had not become a monk. Instead, he had become a demon slayer, and in the 10 years since they last saw each other, Yoriichi had become impossibly strong. He moved so fast, Michikatsu couldn't see him. He killed the demon effortlessly. Yoriichi had developed a breathing style called sun breathing, the original and most powerful breathing style ever created. He was the strongest demon slayer in existence, and he made every other swordsman look like a child playing with sticks. Seeing Yoriichi again broke something inside Michikatsu. All the jealousy, all the hatred, all the inferiority he had buried came flooding back. Michikatsu realized that no matter how hard he trained, no matter how many years he dedicated to the sword, he would never reach Yoriichi's level. His brother was perfect, untouchable, a genius born with abilities that couldn't be learned or earned. Michikatsu made a decision. He abandoned his wife and children. He left his family, his responsibilities, his entire life behind. He joined the Demon Slayer Corps for one reason, to train alongside Yoriichi and become as strong as him. Michikatsu became a demon slayer. He trained with Yoriichi. He tried to learn sun breathing, but he couldn't. His body wasn't capable of using it. So Michikatsu created his own derivative style called moon breathing. It was powerful, but it was still just a copy, a weaker version of what Yoriichi created. Michikatsu also developed a demon slayer mark, just like Yoriichi's. The mark appeared on his forehead and chin, granting him incredible strength and speed. But the mark came with a curse. Everyone who awakened a demon slayer mark died before the age of 25, no exceptions. Michikatsu realized he only had a few years left to live. All his training, all his sacrifices, all his pursuit of strength would end before he ever surpassed Yoriichi, and that was unbearable. Then Muzan Kibutsuji found him. Muzan had been searching for a demon slayer who could use breathing styles. When he saw Michikatsu's desperation, Muzan exploited it. He offered Michikatsu a deal. Become a demon, and you'll become immortal. Become a demon, and you'll have centuries to grow stronger. Become a demon, and you'll finally have enough time to surpass your brother. Michikatsu accepted. He became a demon. His transformation as a former top-tier demon slayer produced an exceptionally powerful demon. When the transformation finished, Michikatsu had become Kokushibo. His appearance changed. He grew 6 eyes. His body became monstrous. His demon slayer mark spread across his face. Unlike most demons, Kokushibo retained his memories and his consuming jealousy. Kokushibo became Muzan's right-hand man and upper moon, one of the 12 Kizuki. For the next 60 years, Kokushibo killed demon slayers. Over centuries of hunting top demon slayers, sun breathing survived only in the Kamado family, who passed it down in secret as the Hinokami Kagura dance. Then, 60 years after becoming a demon, Kokushibo encountered Yoriichi again. Yoriichi was 80 years old, an elderly man with white hair and wrinkled skin. Kokushibo was disgusted. He couldn't understand how Yoriichi was still alive. The demon slayer mark was supposed to kill everyone by age 25, but Yoriichi had lived past 80. He had broken the curse somehow. When Yoriichi saw what his brother had become, he cried. Tears ran down his face. This shocked Kokushibo more than anything. Yoriichi never showed emotion. He was always calm, expressionless, serene, but seeing his beloved older brother transformed into a demon, having murdered countless innocent people, broke Yoriichi's heart. Kokushibo didn't care about Yoriichi's tears. He knew that if a demon slayer pointed their weapon at him, he had to fight. Yoriichi took his stance to draw his blade, and the moment he did, Kokushibo felt true fear for the first time in 60 years. The air itself became heavy. The pressure from Yoriichi's stance was like having 2 enormous boulders crushing his shoulders. Yoriichi's form was perfect. No openings, no flaws, absolutely impeccable. Yoriichi warned Kokushibo to prepare. Then he moved. Yoriichi slashed Kokushibo's neck so fast that Kokushibo couldn't even unsheath his blade to defend himself. The attack cut deep, nearly decapitating him. Kokushibo waited for the second strike that would finish him off, but the second strike never came. Yoriichi died, right there, standing up, with his sword half drawn. He died of old age, at 80 years old, in the middle of their duel. His body remained standing, frozen in that final moment. Kokushibo stared at his brother's corpse. Rage consumed him. Yoriichi had beaten him again. Yoriichi had transcended everything. He lived a full life. He overcame the curse. He remained undefeated until the very end. And even in death, Yoriichi denied Kokushibo the satisfaction of a fair battle. In his fury, Kokushibo drew his blade and slashed Yoriichi's body in half. He destroyed his brother's corpse in rage, but it didn't make him feel better. Nothing did. Because Yoriichi was gone, and Kokushibo would spend the next 400 years knowing that his brother remained untouchable, even in death. Kokushibo spent 480 years as a demon, He killed numerous Hashira over the centuries. He became the strongest demon besides Muzan, but he never felt satisfied. He never felt like he achieved anything. The jealousy never went away. The hatred never faded. He just became a monster chasing a ghost. In the final battle during the Infinity Castle arc, Kokushibo fought against Muichiro Tokito, Sanemi Shinazugawa, Genya Shinazugawa, and Gyome Himejima. During the battle, Kokushibo realized that Muichiro was his descendant. His bloodline had survived. The family he abandoned had continued, and now he was fighting his own great-great-great-grandson. The battle was brutal. Muichiro stabbed Kokushibo with a red Nichiren blade, temporarily stopping his regeneration. But Kokushibo retaliated and mortally wounded Muichiro. Genya used his blood demon art to pin Kokushibo down. Sanemi and Gyome attacked together, and Gyome finally crushed Kokushibo's head with his flail, beheading him. Kokushibo tried to regenerate. His flesh began to reform, but then he saw himself. His body had mutated into something unrecognizable, a twisted, grotesque monster covered in blades and eyes. He looked nothing like a samurai. He looked like a demon, and for the first time in 480 years, Kokushibo felt horror at what he had become. His body stopped regenerating, not because he couldn't, but because he chose to stop. Kokushibo let himself die. As his body disintegrated, Kokushibo's life flashed before his eyes. He saw himself as a child, giving Yoriichi the flute. He saw his wife and children, the family he abandoned. He saw Muichiro, his descendant, who he just killed. He realized he had achieved nothing. He spent 480 years pursuing strength, and in the end, he accomplished nothing meaningful. He abandoned everything good in his life. He betrayed his honor as a samurai. He killed his own bloodline, and he still never surpassed Yoriichi. In his final moments, Kokushibo was filled with sorrow and rage. He questioned if the path he chose was the right one. He realized his desire for a legacy was meaningless. He ended up with nothing, and as his body turned to ash, Kokushibo called out to his brother. He asked Yoriichi why he was even born. Why was he cursed to live in Yoriichi's shadow? Why wasn't he good enough? Yoriichi never answered. He had been dead for over 400 years, and Kokushibo died alone, full of regret, calling out for his brother one last time. When Kokushibo's body completely disintegrated, only one thing remained, the wooden flute, the same flute Michikatsu had carved as a child and given to Yoriichi, the same flute Yoriichi had treasured for his entire life. Somehow, after everything, after 480 years of hatred and violence and betrayal, that broken flute was the only thing left of the Tsugikuni brothers. Kokushibo's story is disturbing because he had everything and threw it all away for nothing. He had a family who loved him. He had a wife and children. He had a respected position. He had incredible talent as a swordsman, but none of it mattered because he couldn't handle being second best. His jealousy consumed him so completely that he abandoned his humanity, murdered his own allies, and spent nearly 5 centuries as a monster. And in the end, he realized it was all meaningless. The worst part is that Michikatsu was never weak. He was an incredibly talented swordsman. He became a Hashira-level demon slayer. He created moon breathing, one of the most powerful breathing styles. If he had just accepted himself, if he had just been content with his own strength, he could have lived a happy life. But he measured himself only against Yoriichi, the one person in history who was impossible to surpass, and that comparison destroyed him. Kokushibo proves that jealousy is more destructive than any demon. He didn't become a monster because he was evil. He became a monster because he couldn't accept that his brother was better than him. He spent 480 years trying to prove he was worthy, trying to achieve something his brother already had, trying to surpass a memory. And when he finally died, the only thing he wanted was an answer from Yoriichi, an answer to why he existed, an answer to why he wasn't enough. But Yoriichi was gone, and Kokushibo died without ever receiving the validation he spent his entire existence chasing. Just a broken flute left behind, proof that once, a long time ago, 2 brothers loved each other before jealousy turned one of them into Upper Moon One. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Sanemi's matricide, killing his demonized mother. Sanemi Shinazugawa is the Wind Hashira and Demon Slayer. He's known for his brutal fighting style and his deep hatred of demons. But what most people don't know is the reason behind that hatred. Sanemi was forced to kill his own mother after she transformed into a demon and murdered 5 of his younger siblings in a single night. The Shinazugawa family was not living a happy life, even before demons came into the picture. Sanemi was the oldest of 7 children. His father, Kyogo Shinazugawa, was violent and abusive. He would beat his wife and children regularly. The only thing keeping the family together was their mother, Shizu Shinazugawa. She was small and frail, but she never failed to protect her children from their father's rage. She would take the beatings herself to shield them from harm. The family struggled financially. Kyogo was hated by many people in their community because of his violent nature. Eventually, someone with a grudge against him stabbed him to death. While this freed the family from the daily abuse, it also left them without any income. Sanemi and his younger brother Genya, being the two oldest boys, had to step up. They made a promise to each other and to their mother. They would protect the family. They would take care of their younger siblings. They would make sure everyone had food to eat and a roof over their heads. Sanemi had 5 younger siblings besides Genya. There was Sumi, a girl who looked just like their mother, with the same dark hair and gentle face. Teiko was another sister, with large purple eyes and black hair tied back with a bow. Then there were the 3 younger brothers. Hiroshi had a mohawk hairstyle and resembled Genya and their mother. Shuya and Koto were the 2 youngest boys. Despite the hardship they faced, the children loved each other. They stayed close. They helped their mother around the house. And Sanemi and Genya worked hard to bring in money for the family. Life was difficult, but they were managing. Shizu worked long hours to support her children. Sanemi and Genya did whatever jobs they could find. The younger kids helped at home and waited for their mother to return each night. It was a routine they had fallen into after their father's death. The family had finally found some peace, even if they were struggling. But that peace wouldn't last long. One night, everything changed. Shizu didn't come home at her usual time. As the hours passed, the children grew worried. Their mother had never been this late before. Dawn was approaching, and she still hadn't returned. Sanemi decided he couldn't wait any longer. He told Genya to stay home and watch over their younger siblings, while he went out to search for their mother. Genya agreed and promised to keep everyone safe until Sanemi returned with their mother. Shortly after Sanemi left, the younger children woke up. Hiroshi, Sumi, Teiko, Shuya, and Koto all gathered in the main room, waiting for their mother to come home. They were worried. Sumi kept saying how unusual it was for their mother to be so late. Genya tried to calm them down. He told them everything was fine and that they should go back to sleep. But the children couldn't sleep. They wanted to see their mother. They wanted to know she was safe. What Sanemi had discovered while searching for his mother was horrifying. Shizu had been attacked by a demon. The demon had transformed her into one of their kind. Sanemi found her, but he couldn't stop her in time. She had already begun making her way back home, and Sanemi knew exactly what that meant. His mother was no longer human. She was now a mindless creature driven by an insatiable hunger for human flesh, and she was heading straight toward his family. Sanemi rushed back toward the house as fast as he could, but he was too late to stop what happened next. While Genya and the younger children waited inside, a loud knock came from the front door. The children immediately recognized it. Their mother had finally come home. Shuya was the first to realize it was her. He called out to his siblings, and Hiroshi, Sumi, and Teiko all ran toward the door, excited to greet their mother after such a long night of worrying. Genya had a bad feeling. Something felt wrong. He shouted at his siblings not to open the door. He tried to warn them, but it was too late. The door burst open with incredible force. What came through that door was not their loving mother anymore. It was a demon. Shizu's transformation had been recent, which meant she had no control over her actions. She moved with supernatural speed. Her body was driven purely by instinct and hunger. She was no longer the woman who had protected her children from their abusive father. She was now the thing she would have given her life to protect them from. The attack happened in seconds. Hiroshi, Sumi, Teiko, and Shuya were killed almost instantly. The demon that was once their mother moved so fast that Genya couldn't even see what was happening. The room was dark, and the creature moved like a blur. All Genya could see were shadows and movement. He thought it was a wolf. That's how fast she was moving. That's how violent the attack was. In the span of a few heartbeats, 4 of his siblings were dead. The demon then turned her attention to the remaining children. She lunged at Genya, slashing across his face and leaving a deep scar that he would carry for the rest of his life. Then she went after Koto, the youngest brother. She slit his throat. Koto fell to the ground, bleeding out. The demon leaped to the ceiling, stalking Genya like a predator, hunting prey. She was preparing for another attack. Genya was frozen in fear. He couldn't understand what was happening. He couldn't see clearly in the darkness. All he knew was that something had killed his siblings, and now it was coming for him. That's when Sanemi burst through the window. He had finally made it back home, but the scene that greeted him was a nightmare. His younger siblings were dead or dying, and the demon that had killed them was about to kill Genya. Sanemi didn't hesitate. He tackled the demon through the window, crashing out onto the street below. He was screaming at Genya to run, to get away, to find help. Genya, terrified and in shock, ran out of the house to find a doctor for his injured siblings. He still didn't understand what had just happened. he still thought a wolf had attacked them. Outside on the street, Sanemi was fighting for his life. He had a knife in his hand, but he was up against a demon. The creature was strong, fast, and relentless. During the fight, the demon slashed Sanemi across the face, giving him 2 large scars that would mark him forever. But something unexpected happened. When Sanemi was wounded and his blood started flowing, the demon suddenly slowed down. She became disoriented, almost like she was drunk. Sanemi has a rare blood type called Marechi. This type of blood has a unique effect on demons. When they smell it, they become intoxicated. Their senses become overwhelmed. They lose focus and coordination. It's like being heavily drugged. This gave Sanemi the opening he needed. Even though he was just a young boy with no formal training, he managed to fight back. He kept attacking until the demon collapsed on the ground, unable to move. As the demon lay there, the sun began to rise. The first rays of morning light touched the demon's skin, and she began to burn. Demons cannot survive in sunlight. Sanemi stood there, watching as the creature that had killed his family started to disintegrate. That's when he saw her face clearly for the first time since the attack began. And that's when the full horror of what had happened hit him. The demon he had just killed was his mother. Genya came running back at that moment. He had been searching for a doctor to help his injured siblings. When he ran out onto the street, he saw Sanemi standing over their mother's body. Sanemi was covered in blood. The bodies of his siblings were inside the house, and their mother was lying dead at Sanemi's feet, burning in the sunlight and slowly turning to ash. Genya couldn't process what he was seeing. He didn't know that his mother had been turned into a demon. He didn't know that she was the one who had killed their siblings. All he saw was his older brother standing over their dead mother with a knife. In his panic and grief, Genya screamed at Sanemi. He called him a murderer. He accused Sanemi of killing their mother. Those words destroyed Sanemi. He had just been forced to kill his own mother to save his brother's life. He had watched helplessly as 5 of his siblings were slaughtered, and now the one brother he had managed to save was calling him a murderer. Sanemi looked at Genya with a mix of pain and betrayal in his eyes. He didn't say anything. He couldn't say anything. What could he possibly say to make this better? As their mother's body finished burning and turned completely to ash, Genya realized what had actually happened. He understood that his mother had been the wolf that attacked them. He understood that Sanemi had killed her to protect him, but by then, the damage was done. The look in Sanemi's eyes had already changed. Something had broken between the 2 brothers at that moment, and it was something that would take years to repair. Sanemi left after that night. He abandoned Genya and disappeared. The pain of what had happened was too much to bear. He couldn't stay in that place where his family had been destroyed. He couldn't look at Genya without remembering those words, murderer. So Sanemi went off on his own and began hunting demons with a single-minded focus. He didn't know about the Demon Slayer Corps yet. He didn't have a proper sword or any training. All he had was rage, grief, and a desperate need to make sure no one else suffered the way his family had suffered. Sanemi's method of killing demons was crude and dangerous. He would arm himself with whatever weapons he could find, knives, axes, chains, anything he could get his hands on. He would hunt demons at night, using his Marechi blood to his advantage. He would deliberately injure himself to release the scent of his blood, which would attract demons and make them disoriented. Then he would attack them, incapacitate them, and tie them up. He would keep them restrained until morning, when the sunlight would kill them. It was a reckless and suicidal approach to fighting demons, but Sanemi didn't care. He survived through sheer determination and the unique properties of his blood. This went on for years. Sanemi wandered from place to place, hunting demons wherever he could find them. He became known in certain areas as a demon hunter, though people didn't quite understand how he was doing it without proper training or equipment. His unorthodox methods eventually caught the attention of the Demon Slayer Corps. One day, while Sanemi was hunting demons, he encountered a legitimate demon slayer named Masachika Kumeno. Masachika saw potential in Sanemi. He saw the rage and the skill, but he also saw the pain. Masachika introduced Sanemi to the world of demon slayers. He helped him understand that there was an entire organization dedicated to fighting demons. He introduced Sanemi to a trainer who taught him proper sword techniques and breathing styles. Sanemi learned wind breathing, a powerful technique that suited his aggressive fighting style perfectly. Sanemi and Masachika became close friends. They trained together and fought demons side by side. Masachika was one of the few people who understood what Sanemi had been through. He didn't judge him for his anger or his methods. He simply helped him become stronger. The two of them eventually encountered a lower-rank demon, one of the more powerful demons that served directly under Muzan Kibutsuji, the Demon King. The fight was brutal. Sanemi and Masachika fought with everything they had. In the end, they managed to kill the lower-rank demon, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Masachika died during the battle. Sanemi had failed to protect his friend. Once again, someone close to him had been killed by demons. Once again, he was left alone with his grief and rage. Because Sanemi had killed a lower-ranked demon, he was promoted to the rank of Hashira. He became the Wind Hashira, one of the 9 strongest demon slayers in the entire corps. But the promotion meant nothing to him. It couldn't bring back Masachika. It couldn't bring back his mother or his siblings. All it meant was that he had more power to kill demons, and that's exactly what he intended to do. The trauma of killing his mother shaped every aspect of Sanemi's personality. He became cold, aggressive, and hostile toward almost everyone. He especially hated demons with a passion that bordered on obsession. In his mind, there was no such thing as a good demon. Demons were monsters that needed to be destroyed, no exceptions. This belief put him at odds with Tanjiro Kamado when Tanjiro joined the Demon Slayer Corps with his demon sister, Nezuko. Sanemi couldn't accept that a demon could be good or could resist eating humans. To him, it was impossible. He had watched his own mother, a kind and loving woman, transform into a mindless killing machine that slaughtered her own children. If his mother couldn't resist the demon's nature, then no demon could. When he first met Nezuko, he stabbed her to try to prove his point. He even cut his own arm and tried to tempt her with his Marechi blood, believing she would lose control and attack. When she didn't, he still refused to accept it. Sanemi's relationship with Genya was even more complicated. When Genya joined the Demon Slayer Corps, Sanemi was furious. He treated his brother terribly, insulting him and even claiming he had no brother. To outsiders, it looked like Sanemi hated Genya, but the truth was the opposite. Sanemi loved his brother more than anything. That's why he wanted Genya to quit the Corps. Sanemi had killed their mother to protect Genya. He had become a demon slayer so that Genya could live a normal, peaceful life. He wanted Genya to get married, have children, grow old, and die happy. He wanted Genya to have all the things their mother and their younger siblings never got to have. Every demon Sanemi killed was so that Genya wouldn't have to. Every scar on Sanemi's body was so that Genya could stay safe. But Genya had joined the Corps anyway, and that made all of Sanemi's sacrifices feel meaningless. Genya had his own reasons for joining. He wanted to apologize to Sanemi for calling him a murderer. He wanted to make things right between them. He wanted his brother to acknowledge him. So he pushed himself to become stronger, even going so far as to eat demon flesh to gain temporary demonic powers, since he couldn't use breathing techniques like other demon slayers. When Sanemi found out that Genya was consuming demon flesh, he was horrified and enraged. To Sanemi, his brother was turning himself into the very thing that had destroyed their family. The two brothers finally fought together during the battle against Kokushibo, Upper Rank 1, one of the most powerful demons in existence. During that fight, Sanemi finally told Genya the truth. He explained why he killed their mother. He told Genya that it was to protect him. He said that Genya should have lived a normal life, gotten married, and had children to make up for all the family they had lost. He told Genya that he would have made sure no demon ever got near him. But the battle against Kokushibo was devastating. Genya was mortally wounded. He was cut in half by the demon's sword. As Genya lay dying in Sanemi's arms, the two brothers finally reconciled. Genya thanked Sanemi for always looking out for him. He told Sanemi that his big brother was the nicest person in the world. Then Genya's body crumbled away into ash, just like a demon's body would. Sanemi wasn't even left with a body to bury. He had lost his last remaining family member. The pain of losing his mother haunted Sanemi for his entire life. The image of having to kill her with his own hands never left him. The sound of Genya calling him a murderer echoed in his mind for years. The scars on his face served as a constant reminder of that night and the loss of his 5 younger siblings. Children who died before they had a chance to really live weighed on him every single day. Later, during the final battle against Muzan Kibutsuji, Sanemi was gravely injured and nearly died. As his life flashed before his eyes, he saw his mother again. He saw her as she was before she became a demon, gentle and loving. He asked her if she would accompany him to heaven, but he survived the battle. He lived on, carrying the memory of his family with him. The story of Sanemi killing his demon mother is one of the most tragic backstories in Demon Slayer. It explains why he's so angry, why he hates demons so much, and why he treats Genya the way he does. Every harsh word, every violent outburst, every cruel action was rooted in the trauma of that night. Sanemi Shinazugawa is a man who was forced to kill the person he loved most to save his brother, only to be called a murderer for it, and that single moment defined the rest of his life. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Rengoku's abusive household, the fallen flame Hashira father. Kyojuro Rengoku is one of the most beloved characters in Demon Slayer. He's the flame Hashira, known for his bright personality, his incredible strength, and his unwavering belief that the strong must protect the weak. He's always smiling, always encouraging others, and always ready to give his life for those who need help. But what most people don't realize is that Kyojuro grew up in a household filled with pain, disappointment, and emotional abuse. His father, Shinjuro Rengoku, the former Flame Hashira, descended into alcoholism after his wife's death and spent years telling his sons they were worthless and would never amount to anything. The Rengoku family was once a proud and respected household. They had a long history of producing Flame Hashira, going back generations. Shinjuro Rengoku himself had served as the Flame Hashira, and he was known as a skilled and passionate warrior. He was devoted to his duties, saving people from demons, and upholding the honor of the Rengoku name. He married a woman named Ruka, who was wise, gentle, and graceful. She was the complete opposite of Shinjuro's loud and intense personality. Together, they had 2 sons. Kyojuro was the eldest, and Senjuro came several years later. When Kyojuro and Senjuro were young, their father trained them in swordsmanship. Shinjuro was a dedicated teacher. He showed his sons the techniques of flame breathing, the style that had been passed down through the Rengoku family for generations. He taught them with love and passion. The family seemed happy during those early years. Shinjuro was proud of his sons and excited to see them follow in his footsteps. Ruka was a loving mother who taught her children important values about life and duty. But everything changed after Senjuro was born. Ruka developed an untreatable disease. The illness left her bedridden. No doctors could help her. No medicine could cure her. All the family could do was watch as she grew weaker, day by day. Ruka knew she was dying. Before she passed away, she called Kyojuro to her bedside. She wanted to make sure he understood something important. Ruka asked Kyojuro if he knew why he was born stronger than other people. She told him to think carefully about this question. Kyojuro thought for a while, but he couldn't figure out the answer. Ruka explained that people who are blessed with greater abilities than others have a responsibility. They must use their power for the world and for the people. She told him that hurting others with the power given from the heavens was unforgivable. As she hugged Kyojuro to her chest, tears rolling down her face, she told him that even though she wouldn't be alive much longer, it was a blessing to have been the mother of such a strong and gentle child. These words would stay with Kyojuro for the rest of his life. They became the foundation of everything he believed in. They guided every decision he made as a demon slayer. But at the time, he was just a young boy watching his mother die. When Ruka passed away, Shinjuro was devastated. He had lost the love of his life. The grief consumed him completely. He began drinking alcohol to numb the pain. At first, he continued his duties as the Flame Hashira, but he was drinking even while working. His performance started to suffer. He wasn't the same man he had been before Ruka's death. Around this same time, Shinjuro discovered something that shattered what was left of his pride. He was reading through the chronicles of past Flame Hashira, ancient records that had been kept by the Rengoku family for generations. In these records, he learned about sun breathing. Sun breathing was the first breathing style ever created, developed by a legendary swordsman named Yoriichi Tsugikuni during the Sengoku era. It was the original, and it was the most powerful. The records revealed that all other breathing styles, including flame breathing, water breathing, wind breathing, and all the rest, were actually derived from sun breathing. Yoriichi had tried to teach sun breathing to other demon slayers, but most people couldn't master it because it was too difficult. So Yoriichi modified the style to suit different individuals, creating variations that became the breathing styles used by all demon slayers. This meant that flame breathing, the technique Shinjuro had dedicated his entire life to mastering, was nothing more than a simplified version of sun breathing. It was an imitation, a cheap copy. This realization destroyed Shinjuro. He had spent his whole life training in flame breathing. He had been proud to be the Flame Hashira. The Rengoku family had produced Flame Hashira for generations, and it was their greatest source of honor. But now he understood that everything he had accomplished was meaningless. He would never be as strong as a sun-breathing user. No matter how hard he trained, no matter how skilled he became, flame breathing would always be inferior to the original style. The combination of losing his wife and discovering that his life's work was built on an inferior technique sent Shinjuro into a downward spiral. He stopped training his sons. He quit teaching them swordsmanship entirely. He refused to attend Hashira meetings when he was summoned. He became more and more uncooperative with the Demon Slayer Corps. Eventually, he retired from his position as Flame Hashira. In his bitterness, he even tore apart the generational Flame Hashira record, destroying the precious family documents that had been preserved for generations. Shinjuro's alcoholism got worse. He drank constantly, and as he drank, he became verbally abusive toward his sons. He would tell them they were worthless. He said they had no talent. He told them that people's abilities were decided at birth and that those without natural talent would never become great, no matter how hard they tried. He dismissed their dreams of becoming demon slayers, saying it was pointless and would only get them killed. Kyojuro tried to understand. He remembered when his father used to train them with passion and love. He knew that Shinjiro wasn't always like this. Something had broken inside his father after their mother died. But even though Kyojuro understood, the words still hurt. Every time Shinjiro told him he was worthless, every time his father dismissed his accomplishments, it cut deep. Kyojuro never showed it though. He kept smiling. He kept moving forward. With his father refusing to teach him, Kyojuro had to train himself. He found instruction books that had been left behind by previous Flame Hashira. These books contained only 3 volumes, but Kyojuro studied them carefully. He practiced the techniques on his own, over and over again. He trained day and night. He pushed himself harder than anyone else. He didn't have a teacher anymore, but he was determined to become strong enough to protect people. Senjuro, the younger brother, suffered just as much as Kyojuro. Shinjiro largely ignored Senjuro. He would tell him that he was too weak to become a demon slayer, that he didn't have the talent, that he should give up. Senjuro tried his best to train alongside Kyojuro, but without their father's guidance, he struggled. He couldn't master the flame-breathing techniques, and every time he failed, Shinjiro was there to remind him that he was worthless. Kyojuro became like a second father to Senjuro. He encouraged his younger brother constantly. He told him to believe in himself. He told him to follow his dreams no matter what. Kyojuro made sure that Senjuro never lost hope, even when their father was drunk and yelling at them. Kyojuro shielded Senjuro from the worst of their father's verbal abuse as much as he could. Despite everything, Kyojuro never spoke badly about his father. He never resented Shinjiro. He worried about him. He respected him. He remembered the man his father used to be, and he held on to the belief that somewhere inside, that man still existed. Kyojuro displayed great respect and concern toward his father, even as Shinjiro grew more aggressive and apathetic toward him. Kyojuro eventually passed the final selection and became a demon slayer. He rose through the ranks quickly because of his skill and dedication. He defeated powerful demons, including a lower-ranked demon named Hyro. After this victory, Kyojuro was promoted to the rank of Hashira, taking his father's former position as the Flame Hashira. When Kyojuro came home to tell his father the news, Shinjiro's reaction was cold. In Kyojuro's memory of that moment, his father was lying on the floor, staring out at the garden with a bottle of sake nearby. Kyojuro told him that he had become a Hashira. Shinjiro didn't congratulate him. He didn't show any pride or happiness. Instead, he said it was pointless. He told Kyojuro that neither of them could ever become great people. No matter what rank Kyojuro achieved, it wouldn't matter because he didn't have true talent. He was just another inferior swordsman using an inferior breathing style. Kyojuro didn't argue. He didn't get angry. He simply accepted his father's words and continued doing his duty. He kept protecting people. He kept smiling. He kept being kind to everyone he met. The abuse from his father couldn't break his spirit because his mother's words were stronger. She had told him to use his strength to help others, and that's exactly what he would do. Kyojuro's optimism became his greatest strength. No matter how many times his father told him he was worthless, Kyojuro never believed it. No matter how much pain he carried from growing up in that household, he never let it turn him bitter or cruel. Instead, he became even more determined to be a source of light and encouragement for others. He mentored younger demon slayers. He praised their efforts. He believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. He gave them the support and encouragement that he never received from his own father. Kyojuro fought demons with incredible skill and bravery. He saved countless lives. He inspired everyone around him with his passion and his unwavering belief in justice. He fought Upper Rank 3, a demon named Akaza, on the Mugen train. During that battle, Kyojuro was mortally wounded. As he lay dying, he saw a vision of his mother. He asked her if he had done well, if he had fulfilled his duty. She smiled at him and told him that he had done a wonderful job. Kyojuro's final words included messages for his father and brother. He told Senjuro to follow his dreams no matter what, and he asked Senjuro to tell their father to take care of his body. Even in his final moments, Kyojuro was thinking about his father's well-being. He never gave up on Shinjiro. After Kyojuro died, Tanjiro Kamado visited the Rengoku estate to deliver Kyojuro's final messages. When Shinjiro first saw Tanjiro, he immediately recognized the Hanafuda earrings that Tanjiro wore. These earrings were a symbol of sun-breathing users. Shinjiro became enraged. He thought Tanjiro had come to mock him. He yelled at Tanjiro, telling him that all breathing styles, except sun-breathing, were worthless imitations. He cursed Kyojuro for becoming a demon slayer, saying he always knew it would get him killed. Tanjiro and Senjuro were shocked by Shinjiro's words. Senjuro stood there, with tears forming in his eyes as his father ranted. Shinjiro continued, saying that Kyojuro had gone and become a demon slayer despite having no talent. He said Kyojuro's death proved that he was weak. He called his son's sacrifice worthless. But then, Senjuro delivered Kyojuro's final message. He told his father that Kyojuro's last words included asking him to take care of his body. When Shinjiro heard this, something broke inside him. He had been expecting complaints. He had been expecting anger. But instead, even in death, Kyojuro was worrying about him. Kyojuro was showing him love and concern. Shinjiro broke down in tears. The memory of Kyojuro, the reality of what he had lost, finally hit him. He realized that he had spent years pushing away his son, calling him worthless, refusing to acknowledge his accomplishments. And Kyojuro had never once stopped loving him. Kyojuro had never stopped worrying about him. Even at the very end, Kyojuro's thoughts were about his father's health and well-being. Later, Shinjiro wrote a letter to Tanjiro. He was sober when he wrote it. He apologized for his shameful behavior. He took back everything he had said. He admitted that he had been spiraling downward since his wife's death and had turned to alcoholism to cope. He said he was a fool, unlike his two sons, who were more like their mother. He praised both Kyojuro and Senjuro. He acknowledged that they were good people, despite having such a terrible father. Shinjiro's redemption came slowly. He eventually stopped drinking. He started taking care of himself again. When the final battle against Muzan Kibutsuji began, Shinjiro was seen at the Butterfly Mansion alongside former Sound Hashira Tengen Uzui. He helped protect the Ubuyashiki family. He vowed to follow Kyojuro's example and not bring shame to the Rengoku name. He was finally living up to the values that his son had embodied all along. The story of Kyojuro's childhood is heartbreaking. He grew up watching his father destroy himself with alcohol and grief. He endured years of being told he was worthless and talentless. He watched his younger brother suffer under the same verbal abuse. He had to teach himself swordsmanship because his father refused to train him. And through all of it, Kyojuro never let the darkness consume him. Instead, Kyojuro became a symbol of hope and kindness. He proved that you don't need your father's approval to succeed. He proved that you can grow up in a broken home and still become a good person. He proved that optimism and kindness are not weaknesses, but incredible strengths. Every time someone told him he couldn't do something, he worked harder. Every time his father dismissed him, he smiled and continued on his path. Every time darkness threatened to pull him down, he set his heart ablaze and pushed forward. Kyojuro's kindness wasn't naive. He knew pain. He understood suffering. He had experienced rejection from the person whose approval he wanted most, but he chose to respond to that pain by being kind to others. He chose to lift people up instead of tearing them down. He chose to encourage instead of discourage. He made sure that no one under his guidance would ever feel the way his father made him feel. The abuse Kyojuro suffered shaped him, but it didn't break him. It made him more determined to be different. It made him more passionate about protecting others. It gave him empathy for people who were struggling. When he saw someone lacking confidence, he remembered how it felt to be told you had no talent. When he saw someone in pain, he remembered the pain of watching his father descend into alcoholism, and he used those memories as motivation to be better, to do better, to help others in ways that he was never helped. Kyojuro Rengoku's story is ultimately one of triumph. He triumphed over the emotional abuse of his father. He triumphed over the pain of losing his mother. He triumphed over the absence of proper training and guidance. He became the Flame Hashira, not because he had some special gift, but because he worked harder than anyone else. He became a hero not because someone believed in him, but because he believed in others. And he became one of the most beloved characters in Demon Slayer, not because he had a perfect life, but because he chose to be kind despite having every reason to be bitter. His father's words were meant to crush him, but they didn't. His childhood was filled with disappointment and pain, but it didn't define him. Kyojuro Rengoku proved that you can rise above the circumstances you were born into. You can break the cycle of abuse. You can be better than your parents. You can take all the pain and suffering life throws at you and transform it into something beautiful. And that's exactly what Kyojuro did. He took his broken childhood and used it to become a light for others. He set his heart ablaze, and that flame never went out. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.